Marvel. God level eating. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Completely Crushing. In the frozen pillar, Jiliu's body was completely frozen, but he did not die immediately. He could still see the outside world through the ice. When the ghost raised his hand, his eyes were finally filled with fear. However, Jiliu could do nothing except fear, until his frozen body was penetrated by the ghost. Ding. Devour mutants. You can get the ability, Hurricane LV3, convert devouring points, and you can get 50 devouring points. After the rich blood bloomed, Johnny's mind sounded a system prompt. Convert devouring points, Johnny said silently in his heart. Johnny was not very interested in Jiliu's ability. He now had a lot of abilities. Johnny understood the principle of miscellaneous but not refined very early. For this reason, Johnny's next plan was that he didn't need to obtain any particularly powerful skills. Thinking of this, Johnny's eyes slowly fell on the Red Devil. Although Johnny had restrained his terrifying momentum and pressure at this time, the blood-red sand and the strong smell of blood on the ground still stimulated the Red Devil, reminding him of the terrible fact that had just happened. Don't do it. You have also awakened your ability. We are the same kind of people. There is no need to kill each other for ordinary people. Zhao started this war just to make mutants dominate the world in the future. As long as Zhao's plan succeeds, with your strength, you will definitely be one of the few people standing at the top. Although the Red Devil was afraid, he still had some thoughts. After so much time, Zhao had absorbed too much nuclear energy. As long as he could hold on for a moment, there would be a chance. As the Red Devil spoke, there were already traces of energy fluctuations surrounding the surface of his body, ready to teleport at any time. He knew that if Johnny took action, he would have no chance of winning at all. The only thing he could do was to escape through space teleportation. Perhaps there would be a glimmer of hope. After seeing Johnny's horror, the Red Devil would naturally make a wise choice in the face of Zhao's great dream and his own life and death. However, Johnny could see through the Red Devil's thoughts, and he just smiled coldly. I'll give you a chance to choose. Surrender to me, or be like him. The he Johnny was talking about was naturally the torrent that had been swallowed. While Johnny was speaking, strands of strange energy had already diffused in the air. Hearing Johnny's words, a trace of anger flashed in the Red Devil's eyes. Although he knew that he was definitely not Johnny's opponent, he also had a certain degree of confidence in facing Johnny. This confidence came from his awakened special mutant ability, teleportation. This ability allows the Red Devil to travel through space and reach anywhere he wants to go. It can also allow him to avoid danger in advance. You obviously don't understand my ability, so you say such arrogant words. I want to leave, and you can't keep me at all. Facing Johnny, the Red Devil slowly spoke, ready to teleport away at any time. Very good. Johnny's response was only 2 words, and the next moment, the Red Devil, who was nervous about Johnny, had already let out a painful scream and rolled to the ground. In order to prevent the Red Devil from using his mutant ability to escape, while speaking, the toxins controlled by Johnny had already fully invaded the Red Devil's body. At this time, all the toxins broke out under Johnny's control. However, Johnny did not mean to kill the Red Devil immediately. He just wanted him to endure unbearable pain and not be able to use his abilities. Looking at the Red Devil in pain, Johnny smiled slightly. In the Red Devil's horrified eyes, he suddenly disappeared. When he appeared again, he was already in front of the Red Devil. This sudden change made the Red Devil's fear even greater. He tried desperately to use his abilities to escape, but under the stimulation of extreme pain, he could do nothing but troll and wail. Think carefully about the choice I gave you. After I deal with it, I hope to hear an answer that will satisfy me. Johnny looked down at the Red Devil and said, Charles, take the White Queen and the Red Devil away. Now has absorbed a lot of reactor nuclear energy. You'd better step back in the next battle. At the same time, Johnny's voice rang out on the X-Men fighter plane that was nervously paying attention to everything in the air. Johnny's voice brought the terrified X-Men on the fighter plane back to their senses. "Quick, listen to Mr. Johnny and take them away," Charles said to Hank, who was driving a fighter plane beside him. Without hesitation, he had sensed that the terrible energy fluctuations in the damaged nuclear submarine had become much more intense. The X-Men's fighter plane quickly landed, carrying the stiff White Queen and the painful Red Devil, and then soared into the sky and stayed in the sky. After seeing the tip of the iceberg of Johnny's strength, the fighter plane rose to an altitude of nearly 1,000 meters, and Hank controlled the fighter plane to slowly stop. Seeing the White Queen and the Red Devil being taken away by the X-Men and others, Johnny didn't say much. He moved his body and in a blink of an eye, he crossed a distance of dozens of meters like teleportation and appeared in front of the damaged nuclear submarine. "No, you have been hiding for so long, don't you dare to come out?" Johnny spoke coldly to the nuclear submarine whose energy was becoming more and more violent. The voice slowly spread and penetrated into the nuclear submarine, allowing Zhao to hear it clearly. After a few breaths, Zhao in the nuclear submarine was still absorbing the energy of the reactor on his own. Although he knew everything that happened in the outside world, he had no intention of showing up. Even when his men were dealt with by Johnny, Zhao could keep his composure. However, this also made Johnny even more disdainful of this person. After dealing with the 3 White Queens, Johnny did not have much patience. After a cold snort, the violent cosmic energy condensed again, and a huge energy palm reappeared, then clenched into a fist and smashed towards the broken nuclear submarine. Bang! With a huge explosion, the entire nuclear submarine was like a can that was crushed by a foot, and most of it was dented. Such an attack would turn the entire nuclear submarine into a pile of scrap metal in just a few hits. Under this huge movement, Zhao, who was constantly absorbing reactor energy in the nuclear submarine, finally couldn't help it. At this time, after this period of time, Zhao had absorbed most of the energy of the nuclear reactor. His body was like a mobile nuclear bomb, and he could burst out with great power with every move. Zhao's mutant ability is very special and powerful. He has the ability to absorb all forms of energy and convert them into his own energy. All the energy in motion, including electrical energy, kinetic energy, thermal energy, etc., will be absorbed by Zhao, making him extremely powerful and strong in defense. While fighting with the enemy, he can also absorb some energy from the enemy. In other words, as long as there is enough energy, Zhao is almost invincible. As the nuclear submarine sank, Zhao's hands on the nuclear reactor also detached, pointed at a distorted wall, and the violent energy roared, and the explosion occurred instantly. Boom! The energy burst out from Zhao's fingertips was so huge that the steel wall could not resist the violent explosion force at all and instantly broke into pieces. The explosion extended all the way, and the flames rolled, breaking a big hole in the middle of the broken nuclear submarine. The mouse hiding in the dark finally came out. At the moment of the explosion, Johnny smiled slightly and looked at Zhao, who appeared in the big hole of the nuclear submarine. The two eyes met in the air, and it seemed that invisible sparks were generated. Chapter 52 Nuclear Shock? Ignore. At this time, Zhao was wearing a helmet made of special materials. This helmet could completely block the mental power of the outside world. Even Charles, who was very good at psychic abilities among mutants, could not penetrate it. However, Zhao's body contained an amazingly powerful energy. The huge energy fluctuations oppressed everything around him. With a slight movement of his eyes, Zhao had already seen the huge frozen pillar, but he did not see his men. "Where are my men?" Zhao's face gradually became gloomy, and he asked Johnny. Among the people present, Johnny was the only one who made him feel a strong threat. At this time, he did not see the figures of Jiliu and others. According to Zhao's judgment, it was related to Johnny. "Don't you have eyes?" Hearing Zhao's words, Johnny smiled, and his eyes fell on a piece of sand on the beach next to the frozen pillar that was completely dyed red. The meaning was self-evident. "You dare to kill Jiliu?" In the violent energy fluctuations, Zhao's face turned completely cold, and his whole body was full of murderous intent. He walked towards Johnny step by step from the broken hull of the nuclear submarine. The strong anger and momentum rose, making the air in the space where Zhao was slightly distorted. It was obvious that he was ready to take action. "I don't think there is anything wrong with killing a waste. As for you, you hid in the nuclear submarine, and you were reluctant to come out when you saw your men being killed by me. You also asked a hypocritical question. Is it interesting? The mockery on Johnny's face was even stronger. They were fighting outside. Is it possible that I didn't know? Johnny's voice was not only not concealed, but also slowly spread to the battleship of the X-Men. The imprisoned White Queen and the painful Red Devil could hear it clearly, which made the two of them feel a little gloomy. Yes, with his powerful ability, how could he know nothing about the outside world? When the Rapids were killed by Johnny, I was still hiding in the nuclear submarine to absorb energy, completely treating them as cannon fodder. His pupils also shrank slightly at Johnny's words. Such words were very heartbreaking. A light and taunting sentence seemed to be said to himself, but in fact, it was heard by his men, which just separated their relationship. Since you killed my men, you should be prepared to be buried with him. I looked at Johnny, who was calm on the opposite side, and felt the anger in his heart. He raised his arm and pointed a finger at Johnny. The majestic nuclear energy in his body was mobilized and condensed at his fingertips. His fingertips quickly condensed a ball of bright yellow energy, emitting terrifying fluctuations. When this ball of bright yellow energy emerged, even the surrounding space showed slight ripples, and the air was even more distorted. Seeing this scene, everyone was terrified. On the fighter plane, Charles had a strong mental power and could perceive this level of energy most clearly. This move, just from the current fluctuations, is enough to rival the explosion in the core area of a battleship missile. Mr. Johnny, be careful. Feeling the horror of Zhao's attack, Charles used his psychic ability in a hurry, and his voice resounded in Johnny's ears. However, at this time, Zhao had already condensed and accumulated the kinetic energy of terrifying nuclear energy, bursting directly towards Johnny. The powerful energy emitted a blazing light, and the laser formed was far more dazzling than the scorching sun, and the speed was as fast as lightning. Everyone stared wide-eyed and held their breath. In this blazing beam of light, they were all filled with the terrible fear of destruction. At this moment, only Johnny, who was facing this terrifying attack, remained calm. Looking at the energy explosion that was coming, Johnny slowly raised his hand. On Johnny's palm, there was also a magnificent cosmic energy condensed. Under the incomparable gaze, a translucent shield was formed, stretching in front of him. Under the powerful and blazing beam of light, almost no one could see the shield on Johnny's palm. This scene looked like Johnny wanted to use his thin palm to hit the terrifying energy wave. Countless people were screaming in their hearts, thinking that Johnny was crazy. However, when the lightning-fast energy wave instantly arrived in front of Johnny, they knew, what kind of existence is Johnny? The energy that seemed to be enough to penetrate an aircraft carrier, after encountering Johnny's palm, turned into stars in front of Johnny like ice and snow melting, and dissipated directly into the air. The vast and majestic power directly turned into stars and dissipated, which looked very spectacular. Everyone thought that this was their illusion. At this moment, there was only one word in the hearts of countless people, that is, incredible. Is this the power of this sudden godlike existence? The power that was enough to destroy an aircraft carrier in an instant was easily resisted by Johnny's flesh palm. The nuclear energy absorbed by Zhao and the cosmic energy that Johnny could control were completely on a different level. Under the collision of the two energies, the superiority was immediately determined. After the energy impact launched by Zhao quickly dissipated, Johnny still had a calm face, and there was even a bit of mockery in his eyes. Standing in place, Zhao's pupils shrank even more. Just now, in order to establish his prestige, this air attack had already exploded with 70% of strength. In Zhao's opinion, even if Johnny was strong, he had already absorbed a large amount of nuclear energy from the nuclear reactor. Even if the 70% or 80% attack could not kill Johnny, it would be no problem to seriously injure him. But who would have thought that, let alone seriously injure him? Johnny was not in a panic after this attack, and he easily resolved it without moving his body. The US and Soviet troops on the sea were far away and could not see this scene clearly, but they also knew that the person who was forced out by Johnny in the end should be the mastermind behind this incident, and they all cursed. The X-Men and others in the sky also saw the scene of Zhao attacking Johnny. They were not only amazed at Zhao's extremely powerful strength after absorbing huge energy, but also deeply touched by Johnny's strength. In their hearts, Johnny alone is comparable to thousands of troops. Mr. Johnny's strength is definitely the strongest person I have ever seen. Even now, I can't figure out how strong his ability and strength limit are. After a careful observation, Charles had to exclaim, and his worry about Johnny was slowly put down. "I want to see how you make me die with you." When Zhao was silent, Johnny's calm voice sounded. This was like another heavy slap on Zhao's face, which made his eyes instantly become much gloomier, and his aura soared to the sky without any concealment, mixed with a rising murderous intent. By now, Zhao's plan had basically failed. The nuclear submarine was destroyed, his men died, and both the United States and the Soviet Union would regard him as an enemy. All this was thanks to Johnny. "You will die in pain," Zhao said, gritting his teeth. Chapter 53 Tyrannical Sebastian. Johnny's indifferent and sarcastic attitude has already made Zhao, who is used to being high and mighty, fall into a rage. The waves of the furious Zhao are becoming more and more terrifying. He has no intention of holding back. At this moment, Zhao only wants to go all out and brutalize Johnny. Watching Johnny turn into ashes in his anger, under the burst of energy, Zhao stepped heavily on the ground, and the energy instantly burst out from his feet. The soft beach could not withstand Zhao's violent energy, and instantly raised a sky full of dust. With the help of this energy burst, Zhao's body directly turned into a phantom and shot towards Johnny. This instantaneous push made Zhao's speed surge, and a sharp whistle that cut through the air burst out. On Zhao's fist, powerful nuclear energy has been condensed. His ability allows him to absorb all thermal energy, kinetic energy and potential energy, and in order to burst out the most powerful power, he needs to release it directly through his body. With a fist that condensed huge energy, Zhao punched Johnny, who was getting closer and closer in a ferocious look. Facing Zhao, who had absorbed a lot of nuclear energy and was in his peak state, Johnny did not feel much crisis. The opponent absorbed a lot of nuclear energy, and his self-confidence also swelled, and he actually wanted to fight him. With the Titan physique reaching level 10 and the divine power flowing, Johnny had no intention of dodging at all. Looking at the fist that was getting closer and closer, Johnny's face remained calm, and the divine power flowed through his body. He did not exercise any ability, and relied entirely on the terrifying physical strength to punch Zhao. Although Johnny did not use his full strength in this punch, he was quite confident and planned to teach Zhao a lesson with one punch. Seeing that Johnny did not dodge or evade his punch, and was even prepared to be tough, Zhao's face showed a cruel look. "Die!" With a loud shout, Zhao mobilized even more huge energy in his body, all gathered on his fist, and wanted to kill Johnny with one punch. Bang! Johnny and Zhao's fists collided in the air, and it was not the dull sound of fists hitting flesh, but a huge energy explosion. As the two fists collided, terrifying energy exploded, and the explosion was very powerful. The energy that exploded instantly caused the entire beach to shake violently, and a huge sand wave nearly 10 meters high rose on the beach, and then fell heavily. At the location where the two had just collided, a huge sand pit of more than 50 meters had been formed, and the depth was also very terrifying. At the moment of the energy explosion, Johnny had no intention of defending at all, and let the explosion hit his body without any damage. Zhao endured the powerful energy explosion, and with a muffled groan, his mutant ability exploded with all his strength. While swallowing and absorbing the violent energy, he flew back, and the pain from Johnny's hard fist made Zhao's face distorted a lot. After stabilizing his body, Zhao only felt the severe pain in his arm that he had collided with Johnny, which was almost out of his control, and his heart was full of horror. Because in the past, even if a truck running at full speed ran over him, he could block it instantly and absorb all the kinetic energy and potential energy without any discomfort. And Johnny's punch almost directly crippled one of his hands. What does this mean? If the opponent bursts out with all his strength, it is even possible to break through the limit of his energy absorption. Thinking of this, Zhao's heart could not help but feel a deep fear and fear. At this moment, Zhao's eyes looking at Johnny were no longer arrogant, but became more serious. Johnny, who had exchanged a punch with Zhao, looked at Zhao, whose face was flushed and whose breath was restrained a lot, and shook his head slightly. "It's really a good ability. My simple physical strength didn't blow you up with one punch. I want your ability." Johnny smiled a little, and there was a hint of heat in his eyes when he looked at Zhao. Zhao's mutant ability is indeed powerful. If it were someone else, I'm afraid there would be no way to deal with him. In the original book, it was Charles who took advantage of the chaos to control him and relieved his ability, and then he was killed by Magneto. Under normal circumstances, Zhao, who absorbed a lot of energy from the nuclear reactor, is simply invincible in a single fight. However, this is for others. Now, Zhao has met him. This mutant ability that swallows energy and transforms it into one's own strength is indeed worth Johnny's swallowing and absorption. "I admit that you are very strong. If I hadn't absorbed a lot of nuclear energy, I would have been defeated by you. However, I can absorb all kinetic energy, potential energy, and thermal energy. You can't beat me. I can destroy the two fleets in front of you at any time." Johnny's attitude almost drove Zhao crazy. He was the only one who looked down at his fearful opponents and spoke in such a tone. Now the change of identity made Zhao unacceptable and he began to threaten. Zhao's words were a joke in Johnny's eyes, but when heard by others, their faces changed drastically and they were filled with fear. The fleets of the United States and the Soviet Union were ready for war. Everyone was nervous and focused on Johnny and Zhao on the island. After becoming interested in Zhao's ability, Johnny didn't bother to talk nonsense. With a thought, he disappeared in front of Zhao. Bang! Before anyone could see clearly, Zhao's body had made a muffled sound, and energy exploded in the strange expansion of his chest and abdomen, and his body flew into the air. "You said you can destroy anything in front of me at any time?" Johnny's figure was hard to catch with the naked eye, but his voice was clearly transmitted to Zhao's ears in midair. Without waiting for Zhao to make any reaction, bang! Zhao only felt another heavy kick on his back, almost breaking his spine. The power of this kick was even greater, causing Zhao's body, which was constantly flying, to fall rapidly to the ground in an instant. Under the slight tremor of the ground, a large amount of yellow sand was lifted up, and Zhao's body had already hit the ground. The phantom swayed, and Johnny's figure finally became clear again, appearing in everyone's sight. "What happened?" "Too fast. I can't see clearly at all." "Is it teleportation?" How many terrible abilities does Mr. Johnny have mastered? On the X-Men's fighter plane, whether it was the White Queen and the Red Devil controlled by Johnny, or the X-Men and others, they were all shocked beyond words. It's not teleportation, it's that his speed is too fast, beyond the limit of what the naked eye can capture. My mental power can barely catch the slightest trace of his trajectory. Charles was the only one among the crowd who understood what Johnny had just done. Only his strong mental power could keep up with Johnny's speed. Hearing Charles' words, everyone was dumbfounded for a moment, and they didn't know what to say. Johnny didn't know how many people he shocked when he beat Zhao. When he used his speed and strong physique to abuse Zhao, he gradually became addicted to the pleasure of completely crushing Zhao. "What did you say before?" Bang! Zhao's body was thrown away. "You can absorb everything?" Bang! Zhao's body fell. "Why don't you say anything?" Bang! Chapter 54, Instant Kill. In just a short moment, it was enough for Johnny, who used the speed, to launch thousands of attacks. When he began to withstand the attack, Zhao's mutant ability was able to absorb a lot of the impact force of Johnny's attack, so that he was not hurt much. However, as Johnny's violent attack came, even Zhao's mutant ability was completely overwhelmed. When Johnny stopped, Zhao's body fell from the air with a bang, and it was unrecognizable and beaten into a pig's head. Moreover, there was a huge and chaotic energy on his body that emitted chaotic fluctuations. The accumulation of various energies exceeded Zhao's limit. Zhao, who was limp on the ground, still had a strong look of disbelief in his eyes. Until now, he didn't figure out how he was lying on the ground with a bruised face. Johnny's violent momentum gradually subsided, and he walked towards Zhao step by step with a smile on his face. Johnny's speed was not fast, but every step he took made Zhao's body tremble violently, and he felt an inexplicable crisis of death. Seeing the indifference in Johnny's eyes, Zhao knew that no matter whether he begged for mercy or not, he would have absolutely no chance of survival. Thinking of this, Zhao's eyes showed a terrible madness. When people are forced into a desperate situation, They often do many terrible things. Pulling others to take the blame is Zhao's current idea. The terrible energy fluctuations suddenly rushed up from Zhao's body. Crazy Zhao completely released the restraint on the chaotic energy in his body, and even continued to urge these chaotic energies to collide. Not good. Zhao is going to detonate the energy in his body. In addition to Johnny, Charles was the first person to discover Zhao's intention. On the fighter plane, Charles' face changed drastically. Hank, leave this area quickly. Zhao's body is going to explode, and the power is definitely no less than a nuclear bomb explosion. As his face changed, Charles shouted to Hank, who was driving the fighter plane. Hearing Charles' words, everyone's face changed drastically, and the X-Men's fighter plane suddenly accelerated, quickly reaching their limits, and avoided towards the distant sky. At the same time, Charles' ability was used to communicate with the senior leaders of the US and Soviet warships, informing them of the impending emergency. Although the US and Soviet anti-ship fleets were in the sea, Zhao's terrifying fluctuations were intense, and they also had a terrible sense of panic. After being reminded by Charles, the two fleets on alert did not hesitate, and like the X-Men's fighters, they also accelerated madly towards the distant sea. No one dared to face Zhao's self-explosion. When the X-Men's fighters and the US and Soviet warships evacuated in a hurry, Johnny frowned. He didn't expect Zhao to be so cruel and wanted to drag everyone to be buried with him. Ha ha ha, they can't run away, and you can't run away either. The energy on his body became more and more violent, causing Zhao to endure unimaginable pain, and his eyes became more and more crazy. He slowly got up from the ground and stared at Johnny. However, Zhao, who was in a frenzy, did not see the cold disdain in Johnny's eyes. Let's die together. The loss of control of energy made Zhao's body swell strangely, with a tendency to explode at any time. Zhao's eyes bulged, and the pain was crazy and intertwined, looking extremely terrifying. Puff. The sound of a sharp weapon piercing flesh and blood suddenly sounded. Zhao's body was like a deflated ball. His bulging trunk and limbs suddenly shrank, and his eyes became terrified and desperate. In Zhao's chest, the ghost's sharp and narrow nails penetrated straight through, crushing all his vitality. No, you really think too highly of yourself. In Zhao's already somewhat blurred consciousness, Johnny's calm voice slowly sounded. Then, Zhao's world completely fell into a black abyss. Until death, Zhao was full of doubts and unwillingness. At the last moment when Zhao was about to self-destruct, Johnny controlled the ghost to kill him directly with one blow, not giving Zhao any chance to self-destruct. Ghost, don't waste it. Looking at the energy in Zhao's body rapidly dissipating, Johnny smiled slightly. As for the nuclear radiation escaping from Zhao's body, Johnny simply ignored it. With a titan's physique, let alone nuclear radiation, even in a space with a lot of terrible radiation, Johnny can easily cross it. The energy-filled body is the favorite feast of the undead ghost. After receiving Johnny's order, the ghost did not hesitate at all and began to devour it crazily. Ding. Devour mutants. Gain the ability, Energy Absorption and Conversion Level 4. Convert devouring points. Gain 400 points. The system prompt sounded in Johnny's mind. 400 devouring points. What a pity. I choose to gain the ability. Johnny felt a little regretful, but still chose to gain Zhao's ability. After making the choice, a lot of information related to the new ability emerged in Johnny's mind, making Johnny smile a little. This mutant ability is currently only level 4, but in Zhao's hands, it has shown terrible energy, almost becoming an unmatched existence, and almost provoking a catastrophe for mankind. After Johnny obtains it, as long as there are enough devouring points, energy absorption and conversion will become a terrible divine skill. Why hasn't it exploded yet? Just as Johnny comprehended the new ability, Charles and others in the US and Soviet fleets and fighter planes, who were still in shock, were slightly confused. According to the terrible fluctuations on the beach just now, Zhao should have become a nuclear bomb at this time, and the destructive impact should have been raging. No, I can't sense Zhao's breath. No. Is dead. Charles's mental ability is strong. After the perception spread, he was the first to react and spoke with an incredible look on his face. Although Zhao was wearing a helmet that could block the invasion of mental power, Charles' mental power could not penetrate deeply, but he could still sense his life breath. Before Yifeng made a move, Charles could still feel the majestic life breath on Zhao, but in the blink of an eye, Zhao's life breath was completely undetectable. What? Hearing Charles' words, everyone on the fighter plane was so shocked that they almost jumped up. Everyone knew clearly about Charles' ability, but the judgment made by Charles made everyone feel incredible. How could Zhao, who was so powerful and ready to open a map cannon just now, die inexplicably? While everyone was horrified, a figure as awe-inspiring as a god appeared in their hearts at the same time. The only explanation is Johnny. Zhao is dead, the crisis is over, and we can return. After confirming again, Charles said to Hank. At the same time, the naval forces responsible for reconnaissance on the warships of the United States and the Soviet Union also saw the situation on the beach through telescopes, and huge cheers broke out on the warships of both sides. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55, Conquering the White Queen and the Red Devil. The roar of the fighter plane approached, and the X-Men saw that the battle was over. Beast Hank also slowly landed in a fighter plane and stopped on the beach where Johnny and Shaw had just fought. The X-Men quickly got off the fighter plane, and everyone's eyes fell on Johnny, with awe of the strong. Mr. Johnny, I am CIA agent Moira. Thank you for solving this crisis. Moira looked at Johnny with only amazement and admiration. Johnny nodded, which was considered a greeting. Then, Johnny's eyes fell on Charles and his party. Although Johnny did not have any momentum at the moment, and his eyes softened, but being stared at by Johnny, the X-Men felt an invisible pressure. Just kidding, the man looking at them now, but just stopped a world nuclear war, and killed Shaw, who was almost invincible in their eyes. Seeing Johnny, Charles smiled and introduced everyone. Invisibly, when facing Johnny, Charles's attitude was very low. Johnny was not too enthusiastic about these people, but he was not cold either. He simply chatted with them. Among all the X-Men, the only one who made Johnny's eyes stop was Magneto Eric Landsherer. Eric looked very young at this time. When he saw Johnny, his eyes were full of awe, just like everyone else. In addition to awe, there was also a bit of gratitude. Johnny, who knew Eric's life, also understood the gratitude in Eric's eyes. It can be said that Magneto's awakening was caused by Sebastian Shaw. In order to awaken Magneto, Shaw shot and killed his mother in front of Eric more than 10 years ago. For many years, Magneto has been chasing Shaw's whereabouts. Today, Johnny killed Shaw to help him get revenge. While Johnny was chatting with everyone, the fleets of the United States and the Soviet Union came over one after another and all headed towards the island where Johnny was. Many people stood on the deck and looked at the people on the island with awe and shock. Charles, things here have been settled. Let's go. Seeing the fleets of the United States and the Soviet Union approaching, Johnny knew what they meant without thinking. Johnny showed terrible strength, and both the United States and the Soviet Union definitely wanted to make friends with him, or even recruit him, but now, he didn't have much intention of contacting him. Charles also understood that the strength Johnny showed today was too terrifying, and it would definitely set off a huge storm. It was indeed not suitable to be too ostentatious at the moment. Mr. Johnny, if you don't mind, let's go together. Charles smiled and invited Johnny. Shaw's threat was resolved by Johnny, but the dilemma faced by mutants was far from resolved. Charles also wanted to contact Johnny more, hoping to get more guidance. As the warships of the United States and the Soviet Union approached the island, many senior officers on the main ship were worried and were thinking about how to speak to Johnny. At this time, the X-Men's fighter planes had already soared into the sky and soon disappeared from everyone's sight. The leaders of the US and Soviet fleets, who had not yet thought of a rhetoric, could only stand on the deck in a daze as they watched the X-Men's fighter planes soar into the sky. If it were someone else, and they dared to let the Navy fleet leaders be rejected, I'm afraid the consequences would be worrying. But Johnny was different. With absolute strength, the so-called military leaders were a complete joke in front of him. In fact, The senior officers of the Navy fleet could not even feel any dissatisfaction in their hearts. The fleet landed and reported everything that happened today. After being stunned for a while, the fleet leader gave the order. Soon, everything that happened in the Cuban waters was quickly reported and directly handed over to the highest level of the government. On the X-Men's fighter plane, Johnny stood in front of the White Queen Emma and the Red Devil. With a thought, Emma emitted a large amount of azure cold air, which then dissipated. Emma's pale face, which had been frozen, gradually regained its color. The Red Devil collapsed to the ground, almost fainting. The poison controlled by Johnny made him feel the pain of living a life worse than death. Now you can make a choice. Looking at the Red Devil, who was as limp as a ball of meat paste, Johnny smiled indifferently and spoke slowly. I am willing to submit, Master. After tasting the pain of living a life worse than death, the Red Devil no longer dared to hesitate. Even though he was about to faint, he still spoke in a hurry. At this time, the Red Devil looked at Johnny with only respect and fear. Very good, Red Devil, you are a smart man. I don't want you to do anything stupid again, understand? Johnny smiled with satisfaction and said, Yes, Master, thinking of the severe pain that made him want to die before. The Red Devil nodded repeatedly. Johnny's eyes moved from the Red Devil to Emma, who had regained some color but was still trembling because of the cold. Emma's trembling body gave people a pitiful feeling, which made people want to protect her. The choice given to the Red Devil also applies to you. Looking at Emma, Johnny's mouth curled up. Hearing Johnny's words, the White Queen's eyes became complicated. After seeing Johnny's strength-crushing, Emma felt bitter in her heart and knew that she had no choice to survive. I choose to surrender, Master. When she said this, White Queen Emma felt that her future life would be dark. Very good, White Queen and Red Devil. From now on, you will follow me, and the Hellfire Club will also be left to you. Johnny smiled slightly and said something that made the two of them a little stunned. Originally, the two who chose to surrender were ready to become a tool for Johnny's control in the future, but they did not expect that Johnny would continue to take over the Hellfire. It can even be said that after Shaw was dealt with by Johnny, the power and influence they controlled would be greatly increased. Johnny made such a decision in order to prevent the Red Devil and the White Queen from having too strong a resistance. He wanted to let the two know that following him was not a bad thing, but a huge opportunity for them to soar to the sky. On the fighter plane, the X-Men did not speak when Johnny subdued the two. After seeing Johnny's methods, Charles was slightly shocked and secretly admired Johnny's skills. With just a few words, it was difficult for the White Queen and the Red Devil to have any thoughts of rebellion. The Hellfire Club has taken in many mutants and has a huge power. Charles was also thinking about how to deal with it, but he did not expect that Johnny had already made a perfect arrangement. Mr. Johnny, your strength shocked me, and your foresight and wisdom made me admire you. Facing Johnny, Charles said sincerely. Chapter 56 Tips. Johnny just smiled at Charles' sincere words. Mr. Johnny, although Shaw's threat has been lifted and the Hellfire Club is now under your control, there will be no trouble. However, as mutants gradually enter the public eye, I wonder how to solve the potential problems. On the fighter plane, Charles hesitated for a long time, finally considered the words, and asked Johnny, the problem of mutants is too complicated, as can be seen from this incident. Although Charles tried his best to promote the harmonious coexistence of mutants and ordinary people, it was difficult to find an effective way for a while. Johnny gave Charles the feeling that in addition to his unfathomable strength, he was mysterious. Therefore, Charles hoped to get Johnny's guidance. Charles and Johnny did not deliberately avoid the conversation. The X-Men and others were also concerned about this topic. When they heard Charles ask, they all listened attentively. Charles, there are many ways to deal with the conflict between mutants and ordinary people. For example, absolute power. Whether it is ordinary people or mutants, as long as someone has absolute power and speaks with power, he can naturally suppress everything and make his own rules. Johnny smiled and said something that shocked everyone. How terrifying would it be to have a power that can deter all mutants and ordinary people from compromising? However, I don't agree with the use of force. For compatriots, sometimes, integration is the best way, but it is also the most difficult way. Johnny changed the subject and said another way. Integration? Charles was slightly stunned. He didn't quite understand what Johnny meant. This is the order I mentioned to you before. The reason why human society remains relatively stable is because of order. If you want to solve the potential problems between mutants and ordinary people, you need a new order. However, the establishment of order requires a point, pioneer, or leader. Johnny's voice was calm, but every word made Charles and others feel deafening. The confusion that was originally in confusion was slowly solved with Johnny's words. Mr. Johnny, I think that with your strength, you can be the leader of mutants, lead them to rise, and guide them to a broad road. Before Charles could speak, Magneto Eric spoke excitedly, looking at Johnny with a look of admiration and fanaticism. At this time, Magneto, after getting his revenge, did not have many complicated struggles and conspiracies in his mind. Like Charles, he hoped to resolve the threat between mutants and ordinary people. Eric, you are joking. I can't lead countless mutants. What's more, I am not a mutant. Feeling Magneto's admiration for him, Johnny smiled faintly and shook his head slowly. Although Johnny was eager to establish his own power after coming to Earth, the mutants now were a chaotic mess, and he didn't have so much energy to take over. Mr. Johnny, you are not a mutant. Johnny's words made everyone stunned. With extremely surprised expressions on their faces, everyone saw the fight between Johnny and Joe. In everyone's habitual thinking, Johnny must be a mutant who has such terrible abilities. When did I say I was a mutant? Seeing everyone's surprised eyes, Johnny couldn't help but laugh and asked back. After being asked by Johnny, everyone realized that it seemed that Johnny had never said that he was a mutant. This was just their wishful thinking. Charles, and everyone here, you are all mutants. This incident is an opportunity. I believe that it won't be long before everyone in the mutant circle will know you. I think you can take this opportunity to set up a mutant organization to be responsible for the problems between mutants. At the same time, it will also serve as a link between mutants and ordinary people, Johnny said. I think Mr. Johnny's method is feasible. I can report it through the CIA, and the government will definitely support it. Agent Moira, who had not spoken all the time, was the first to stand up and express support after hearing Johnny's words. The X-Men fell into silence. Before this incident, no one had thought about the potential crisis between mutants and ordinary people. They had only been the X-Men for less than a month. Among these people, only Charles had considered this issue. Now Johnny's suggestion was indeed feasible in Charles' opinion, but he did not have much confidence. Everyone, what do you think? After thinking for a while, Charles asked the X-Men. I think Mr. Johnny's suggestion is good. At least we are together. Raven smiled a little, no longer deliberately changing his appearance, showing his truest self. Charles, you are our leader. We listen to you. Hank and the others looked at each other. Obviously Charles was the leader. Seeing the eyes of the crowd, Charles felt that the burden on his shoulders was a little heavy, but in his eyes, the flame of fighting spirit was burning. Mr. Johnny, I decided to set up a special school for mutants to recruit, train and protect the mutants whose number has increased dramatically since the 20th century, and teach them how to use and control their own abilities correctly. At the same time, I can also provide reserve talents for the X-Men according to their wishes. However, in many cases, our strength may be far from enough. I hope you can help. Looking at Johnny, Charles nodded slowly. The smile on Johnny's face gradually widened. Charles, I said that we are friends. The Hellfire Club will also participate in the issue of mutants. Emma or Red Devil can handle some things that are not convenient to do in the light. Johnny smiled slightly and said to Charles. Hearing Johnny mention the Hellfire Club, Emma and Red Devil quickly expressed their willingness to cooperate with Charles and others. Charles is a smart man, and he can understand the meaning without Johnny saying it too clearly. The performance of the fighter designed by Hank is quite outstanding, far exceeding the conventional fighters of the U.S. military. It didn't take too long to return to New York. After a brief exchange with Charles and others, Johnny asked Red Devil to take him and Emma away and return to Morgan Biotech to meet Medusa. Having just subdued Emma and Red Devil, although Johnny was very confident in his methods, he could not immediately hand over all the important matters to these two people. Therefore, Johnny planned to let Medusa take over, and Emma and Red Devil would directly assist Medusa, and let Medusa coordinate and help him do things. Chapter 57, Observations from the US and Soviet Leaders. In Medusa's office, the air exploded slightly, and the figures of Johnny and the other two emerged. Feeling the slowing down of space, Johnny's eyes flashed with a sharp light, and his eyes swept over the Red Devil with interest. Seeing Johnny's eyes, the Red Devil felt his whole body tense, and some fear spread in his heart. The moment Johnny stared at him just now, the Red Devil felt a creepy feeling, but it disappeared completely in an instant, making it difficult for him to determine whether it was his own psychological effect. What the Red Devil didn't know was that Johnny was indeed very interested in his teleportation ability. This ability was also an indispensable one in Johnny's plan to improve himself. However, since the Red Devil chose to surrender, Johnny would naturally not attack him again for no reason. "Master, is everything going well?" Seeing Johnny clearly, Medusa, who was a little tense, immediately relaxed and asked obediently, "It's already been solved, Medusa. These are White Queen Emma and Red Devil. They are both my servants. From now on, you will be in charge of them. They will control the Hellfire Club. You will be directly responsible for them." In addition to needing a few capable subordinates to subdue White Queen and Red Devil, Johnny also had another purpose, which was to take a fancy to the Hellfire Club. The Hellfire Club is an international organization where the elites of the global society gather. Over the years, Now has been continuously building it with the White Queen and others. The members who can join it are either celebrities, business tycoons, or political elites. They have considerable power. I understand. Medusa's beautiful eyes swept over the Red Devil and the White Queen. She had already used her psychic ability to see if the two were truly loyal to Johnny. Red Devil was fine. Medusa could roughly see his all of Johnny. When Medusa's eyes fell on White Queen Emma, she showed a look of surprise. A mutant who is good at psychic abilities? Medusa couldn't help but be surprised. After coming to Earth, she had met two mutants who were good at psychic abilities in a short time. One was the future leader of mutants, and the other was the White Queen in front of her. Johnny smiled slightly, but he didn't care. After a simple order, he handed the White Queen and the Red Devil to Medusa. So far, Johnny was completely free. After returning to the villa where he lived, he prepared to retreat for a period of time to get familiar with his new abilities. However, Johnny was in retreat and turned a deaf ear to the outside world, but the world-class storm caused by Hela was far from over. The most direct ones were the direct participants of this incident, the United States and the Soviet Union. The missile crisis ended in vain because of a dramatic battle between Johnny and Hela. Both sides withdrew their troops decisively. The situation of Johnny and the X-Men was clearly fed back to the highest power center of the country. The U.S. Congress convened an emergency meeting at the first time, and all those who participated in the meeting were bigwigs who could make the ground tremble with a stomp of their feet in the United States. These are all the information we have so far. It involves a CIA mid-level agent named Moira, the existence with terrifying power, according to the information provided by Moira, is called Johnny. He has close ties with Charles Francis Xavier and others who claim to be X-Men. In addition, after our joint investigation, Johnny is actually the person in charge of Morgan Biotechnology Company in New York. A lot of facts have proved that there are many genetic mutants among humans. Their abilities are all kinds of strange. This is also a problem that we need to solve urgently. At the president's signal, the highest person in charge of the CIA shared all the information obtained, which shocked everyone and kept whispering to each other. If it were according to the nature of these high-level officials, when a powerful existence appeared, they would either recruit it or spend a lot of money to eliminate the threat and then conduct secret research. But this time, Johnny's ability in front of the US and Soviet fleet was too terrifying, making all the high-level officials feel powerless. Who casually created a 100-meter-high frozen sky pillar and absorbed a nuclear reactor, was beaten like a toy. Who dares to touch such an existence? Mr. President, according to the intelligence we have investigated, Johnny, the participant of this incident, came forward when the war between us and the Soviet Union was about to break out and solve the conspirators behind the scenes. He should not be hostile to the country. We can try to recruit him. If we can recruit him, that would be the best. If we can't recruit him, we must not let him have any hostility towards us." After a discussion, everyone came to a conclusion. Okay, then it's decided. Morgan Biotechnology and the government have always cooperated. We can try to contact each other through this channel. No matter what the result is, we can't let the other party have any dissatisfaction. In the end, the president made the decision directly, after an investigation. The Soviet Union's attitude towards Johnny was completely different from that of the United States. Since he is an American, he is our enemy. This huge threat must be eliminated, otherwise, there is no need to start a nuclear war. He alone is enough for us to bear. At this time, the Soviet Union was in a very hot temper. After investigating Johnny's identity as Morgan Biotechnology, through the cooperative relationship between Morgan Biotechnology and the U.S. military, it decisively classified Johnny to the U.S. government. If you want to solve such a threat, you must be cautious. It is better to leave it to the KGB's Red House. They rarely fail in their missions. After making the decision, an order was issued to the Red House, the most terrifying agent training institution in the UN. Natasha Romanov is the organization's top agent. She is proficient in multiple languages and is good at intelligence collection, espionage and assassination in various extreme environments. She has super first-class fighting ability and super strong resistance to blows. She has completed body transformation and has not yet undergone graduation baptism. After receiving the order from the top, the Red House learned about the target and activated a file of the Red House's top agent. The last page of the file only had a few sentences. Since training, she has performed 86 B-level tasks, 100% completed, 43 A-level tasks, 100% completed, and 9 S-level characters, 100% completed. This mission is classified as Super S-level, and the target is quite difficult. Natasha, you need to be fully prepared. Only success is allowed, and failure is not allowed. In a dark room somewhere in the Red House secret base, the voluptuous and hot Black Widow had an indifferent expression. After taking the target person's information, a hint of indifference flashed in her eyes. After nodding slightly, she put away the information and left. Chapter 58. What I want is the consortium. At the Triskelion headquarters of SHIELD, the one-eyed man Fury looked much more serious after reading a document on the table. The person in power behind Morgan Biotech, who killed the outer members of Hydra, possessed some kind of freezing ability, flying ability, a body strong enough to withstand nuclear bomb explosions, and lightning speed. Fury kept repeating the ability shown by Johnny mentioned in the document. This is not the era of mutants, I think it's the era of mythology. At the end, Fury frowned, and was obviously at a loss for the various problems in front of him. Director, Congress has passed it, and is now arranging for the military to try to contact Johnny through deeper cooperation with Morgan Biotech. According to the order of the top leaders, we must establish a good relationship with the other party, and even if we can recruit him. Fury's deputy saw Fury in trouble and slowly reminded him. After a while, Fury sighed, which contained powerlessness. Although SHIELD is not weak, events like the Cuban Missile Crisis are simply not something that ordinary people can solve. It is impossible to recruit such an existence. If we want to have a stronger power, we need to cultivate it ourselves. How is the construction of a cube going? After sighing, Fury asked his deputy a question that had little to do with intelligence. The deputy was stunned, and then said, "The preliminary preparations have been completed. All the designs are jointly decided by the top scientists and engineers in S.H.I.E.L.D. The defense is quite strict. Director, shall we start construction now?" "Don't worry. According to the current situation, the design plan of the cube needs to be revised. Tell the engineer in charge of designing the cube that the cube I need is for perverts." Fury waved his hand, feeling a little irritable. Before the mutant crisis, Fury decided to build the most stringent prison in the world, but now it seems that the various means and measures of this prison are far from enough in terms of security level. Convey my instructions and let the research center start the Goliath project and the Perseus project. After a brief hesitation, Fury seemed to have made up his mind and said to his deputy beside him, "What, director? But I'll take care of everything." When the deputy heard about the Goliath plan and the Perseus plan, he was obviously stunned and was about to speak, but was interrupted by fury. He could only shut up in dismay. In addition, send the best agent to disguise his identity, enter Morgan Biotechnology, monitor the target person, and report at any time. If possible, this person will become the strongest backbone of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the future. When the deputy was about to leave, Fury spoke again. Although Fury felt that the possibility of recruiting a strong man like Johnny was very small, he couldn't help but be tempted. The strength shown by Johnny not only attracted great attention from the top leaders of the United States, but also tried hard to recruit him. When the undercurrent was surging, Fury also set his sights on Johnny. Yes. After receiving the order, the deputy left quickly, leaving Fury alone in the office and fell into a long silence. The times are advancing too fast. Even humans have evolved. SHIELD probably needs a lot of fresh blood. This is today's newspaper, and some valuable intelligence recently, Master. In Johnny's beachfront villa, Medusa smiled playfully and placed the newspaper and a file in front of Johnny. Johnny picked it up and flipped through it. Most of them were gossips about popular stars, and there was nothing that interested him. "Medusa, how is the company's recent development?" Johnny put down the newspaper and casually opened the file containing a lot of intelligence, while asking. Since letting Medusa take over the company, the development of Morgan Bio has not only not been hindered by the changes in the top management, but has become faster, proving Medusa's talent and ability in management. Johnny just asked casually. "It's all good. The company's market value has been growing steadily, and its stock has been soaring recently. In addition, the company's outstanding shares have been continuously recycled during this period. The owner controls nearly 80% of the shares, and less than 20% of the shares are in circulation. Now these original shares have increased several times, and the holders will not sell them even at a sky-high price." "Very good, but not enough." Johnny's eyes flashed. "What I need is not just a huge company, but a consortium that can influence the political situation." Hearing Johnny's words, Medusa was slightly stunned. Consortium. The meaning of this word goes far beyond the scope of money. In capitalist countries, a huge consortium not only has a huge amount of wealth, but also can influence the political situation. Even the U.S. presidential election is played by various giant consortiums behind the scenes. At present, Morgan Biotech is not short of money, but our power is a little weak. The company needs to recruit a group of politicians and dignitaries. Do you understand what I mean? You can refer to the operation of Hellfire. They know a lot about the upper class, but this process takes time. Don't be stressed. Take your time. Johnny smiled kindly. This is a long-term plan and there is no rush. On the contrary, Medusa was a little excited about Johnny's idea, but soon frowned. She considered it more carefully than Johnny. The rise of a new consortium will inevitably affect the interests of the old consortium. At that time, Chairman, if we develop, will other consortiums? Don't worry, I will take care of these things. Johnny's smile did not diminish. If someone wants to play dirty, he doesn't mind taking action. Don't forget that in Johnny's hands, he controls not only Morgan Biotech, but also the Hellfire Club. By the way, Master, the recent rapid development of the company has a lot to do with the attitude of the Bureau. Their cooperation with us is almost entirely about giving money. The military industry leader in charge of the contact has revealed that they already know your connection with the company. I think, in addition to wanting to show goodwill, they probably want to recruit you. After all, the power displayed by the Master has far exceeded the limit of human beings. Medusa thought of the military that had cooperated with Morgan Biotechnology, and a bit of a mischievous smile appeared on her face, and she couldn't help but speak. "Want to recruit me? It's really interesting. Don't pay attention to them. They dare not do anything. It's just that there will probably be a lot of newcomers joining the company recently. You don't have to worry too much. Understand?" Johnny thought for a while and soon thought of a lot. The U.S. military can find out his details, and other forces can naturally find out too. There will definitely be a lot of agents and spies planted in Morgan biotechnology to test the truth. I understand. Medusa is so smart that she can understand the meaning without Johnny saying it too bluntly. Chapter 59 Rapid Development. By the way, how are Emma and the Red Devil doing? Johnny asked, thinking of the hellfire he had just conquered. Medusa couldn't help but admire Johnny's mention of hellfire. After he completely took over the Hellfire Club, she realized that the power of the Hellfire Club was much more terrifying than she had imagined. Master Sebastian Shaw was the former head of the Hellfire Club. After you killed him, the development of the club was affected to a certain extent. However, after we spread the word that you are the new head of Hellfire, the number of celebrities and politicians who want to join the club has increased several times. Medusa smiled when she mentioned this. Johnny was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that he had attracted a lot of attention without doing anything. The funds of the entire club under control are about 10 billion, 30% of which are contributed by the White Queen Emma. The most impressive performance of the Hellfire Club is not the funds, but the huge network all over the world. In order to facilitate management, the club's headquarters has now moved to Fifth Avenue on the east side of Manhattan, and the Hellfire Club's official residence has been specially set up. When talking about business matters, Medusa's face was ruddy and she looked very excited. After having a certain understanding of Hellfire, Johnny couldn't help but marvel. This is a good thing, Medusa. In this way, Morgan Biotechnology will become much smoother if it wants to develop into a consortium. Morgan Biotechnology is in the open and Hellfire is in the dark. Ordinary forces dare not provoke them at all. If some powerful forces investigate the relationship between Hellfire and Morgan Biotechnology, they should not easily turn against us. In addition, with the goodwill shown by the government and the military, we can consider speeding up the pace of progress. Johnny hesitated for a moment and expressed his thoughts. Of course, everything has two sides. Where there is sunshine, there is shadow. The Hellfire Club is a force in the shadow. Now the outer layer of Hellfire has a lot of forces, but the core force is still too weak. Johnny also has a preliminary idea for the Hellfire Club, but the specific implementation still needs to be coordinated by Medusa, Emma and others. Let Hellfire connect with Charles and others. In addition to carrying out some daily tasks, Hellfire can come forward to solve the mutant crisis that occurs around the world and protect mutants. In this way, the status of Hellfire in the minds of mutants will rise, and its prestige will naturally rise. As for the mutants who are causing trouble, they can join Hellfire if they are willing, and they will not be forced if they are not willing. In a few words, Johnny has made future plans for the two forces of light and darkness in his hands, and Medusa secretly admires him. Although she is in charge of management, she still has a big gap with Johnny in terms of overall view and long-term consideration. Master, don't worry, I will take good care of it. Medusa nodded meekly. After finishing the work, it was time for Johnny to relax. Soon, there was a moving and soul-stirring music playing in the seaside villa. Time flies. It has been more than half a year since Johnny solved the Cuban Missile Crisis. Calculating the time, it has been almost a year since Johnny came to Earth from Sokka. Johnny has become more mature and restrained than when he left Sokka. In the past 6 months, Johnny has been familiar with his abilities most of the time. He only goes out to move around when Hellfire encounters some thorny mutant problems. After this period of development, Hellfire has completely transitioned to the period of alternation between the old and new leaders. Emma and Red Devil are also completely convinced by Johnny as their master, and they work hard for Johnny. At this time, the Hellfire Club is divided into two parts, the core and the periphery. The core of the Hellfire Club, led by Emma and Red Devil, has more than 30 mutants with different abilities under them, who are the most backbone of Johnny's men. The peripheral members of Hellfire Club have also expanded to the most prosperous level. Celebrities and politicians from all over the world are proud to be members of the Hellfire Club. Many people are fighting for an invitation from the Hellfire Club. In the luxurious and extravagant room of the Hellfire Club's official residence on Fifth Avenue on the east side of Manhattan, Johnny has just enjoyed the gentle and ecstatic service of the White Queen Emma and is listening to Emma's report on various intelligence. Johnny's woman, except for Medusa, is the completely submissive White Queen. After dedicating absolute loyalty, she finally got Johnny's favor. Master, in addition to the club, there is also a lot of intelligence about the X-Men formed by Charles recently. The charming and beautiful White Queen Emma leaned softly on Johnny's chest and spoke respectfully. "Oh, tell me." When mentioning Charles, Johnny showed a somewhat inexplicable look on his face. Charles opened the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters in the Westchester family's castle in New York, and also enrolled a large number of mutants, including many young people with special abilities. According to the mutant ability classification formulated by the school, there is even a female student named Jean Grey, whose ability level has reached level 5, that is, Omega level. When mentioning this matter, the White Queen Emma was slightly moved. Jean Grey. Hearing this name, Johnny was stunned, and then laughed. Johnny has a deep impression of the famous Phoenix Girl. This is interesting. If I have time, I will go to Charles' school. Thinking of the terrifying Phoenix Girl Jean Grey in the movie, Johnny couldn't help but be curious. You know, this female mutant, in addition to having terrifying strength, also has a pretty good appearance and figure. If I could ride the Phoenix to the sky. By the way, Master, in addition to this incident, there seem to be some problems within the X-Men. Eric Lancher has quit the X-Men and left the Academy. According to the news I received, it seems that Eric and Charles have different opinions on the issue of mutants, and the two cannot reach an agreement at all, so he chose to leave. Emma said. Johnny nodded. Magneto's growth environment is very different from Charles's. After experiencing the desperate youth of the Nazis, his style of doing things is decisive and ruthless. It would be strange to want him to accept Charles' gentle methods. However, Johnny still has some ideas about Magneto. If his abilities can be fully developed, his strength will be quite terrifying, and thousands of troops will be difficult to match. But for now, Johnny is not in a hurry, and will consider it slowly when there is a chance in the future. Chapter 60 Natasha's Assassination. After enjoying Emma's service, Johnny was about to leave and head to Morgan Biotech. After controlling Morgan Biotech, Johnny could count the number of times he had been there on one hand. Now that he was free, he planned to go and take a look. However, just as Johnny was about to leave the core area of the club's official residence, a somewhat inexplicable look appeared on his face. Although he did not have psychic abilities, his perception was far beyond that of ordinary people. As soon as he walked out, Johnny felt a secretly peeping gaze with a strong murderous intent. Although the other party tried his best to conceal it, Johnny was keenly aware of it. However, Johnny's footsteps did not stop at all, and there was no abnormality in his performance, which made the Black Widow Natasha, who was hiding in the dark, reveal a gleam of brilliance in her eyes. In the club, all the top celebrities and politicians can enter and exit, and the club's security force is also quite strong, and there is almost no crisis. However, with Natasha's top skills, it is not too difficult to sneak in quietly. In front of Natasha, a black sniper weapon has been placed. This weapon is a special sniper rifle. In terms of power, it is dozens of times more powerful than a regular sniper rifle. It can penetrate even a steel plate several meters away. Moreover, the bullets used by Natasha are also very expensive. She has enough confidence that even if the target is strong, she can kill it with one shot under such a sudden attack. For this opportunity, Natasha has been lurking in the United States for 3 months after receiving the order. In the past 3 months, she has only done one thing, which is to investigate. As a top agent, only by investigating all the information of the target can she make a foolproof plan. For the final lure, Natasha did not arrange it in Johnny's villa, but in the Hellfire Club. She also made a lot of preparations and careful plans, and chose to launch it when Johnny was most relaxed. Now, she is hiding in the deep and long passage that Johnny must pass through, just waiting for the best time to be foolproof. And Johnny, it seems that he has not noticed the coming of the crisis at all, and he walks slowly and cooperates. The moment Johnny stepped into the passage, Natasha's eyes flashed with brilliance, and she pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang! A slight sound came from the darkness, and the powerful bullet was already in front of Johnny. Johnny showed an intriguing smile on his face, and his rapid ability was activated instantly. The whole world, in Johnny's eyes, seemed to be still, including the bullet in front of him. Johnny's eyes moved slightly, and he could feel the huge kinetic energy of the bullet, which almost pierced the air. Inside the small and exquisite bullet, there was a lot of energy, and it was obvious that the power of the explosion was also quite good. After taking a look at the bullet, Johnny smiled slightly, and just by turning his head, he completely avoided the trajectory that the bullet was about to pass. The bullet passed by Johnny's ear, and a slight whistling sound was heard. Bang! On the ground behind Johnny, the bullet directly penetrated the heavy marble floor and exploded deep under the surface, making a dull sound. At the moment when the bullet that penetrated deep into the ground exploded and caused the ground to shake slightly, Natasha's eyes were already filled with unbelievable horror. She had spent 3 months preparing and countless efforts to carefully design the assassination plan. It actually failed. Johnny was not in a hurry to act. His eyes were burning, and he had already seen Natasha hiding in the dark. When he saw Natasha's devilish figure and sexy facial features, Johnny's eyes showed a bit of interest. As a time traveler, Johnny naturally knew the killer in the dark. However, Natasha at this time looked much more immature than the beautiful agent in Johnny's impression. Similarly, this immaturity made Natasha's charming facial features more innocent and more charming. Even Johnny couldn't help but lose consciousness for a moment. Bang! 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 At the moment when Johnny lost consciousness for a short time, 3 gunshots continued, and Natasha's attack arrived. 3 bullets were fired, all of which were ordinary pistol bullets. Natasha only prepared 1 sniper weapon and bullet just now, because she didn't think she would miss. This time, seeing 3 bullets coming at him, Johnny just waved his hand casually, and like a magic trick, the 3 bullets disappeared without a trace. "Since you want to play, I'll play with you," Johnny said in Natasha's surprised eyes. As Johnny opened his palm, 3 completely twisted and deformed bullets appeared in his palm and were thrown to the ground by Johnny. And Johnny's palm, after catching 3 bullets with his bare hands, was not injured. Not even a red mark. Seeing this, Natasha felt a strong threat, and her pupils shrank sharply. And this time, Natasha thought she had made sufficient preparations, but now it seems that the result is obviously not the case. She knew that this time, she might be in big trouble. Johnny's strength is unfathomable. Seeing the smile on Johnny's face, Natasha did not stop. Her body stopped rushing forward, and the bullets from the pistol in her hand poured towards Johnny in the blink of an eye, trying to affect Johnny and create a chance for her. But soon, Natasha found that her plan failed. The bullets shot out could not pose any threat to Johnny. This time, Johnny was too lazy to show his ability to catch bullets with his bare hands, but let a large number of bullets fall on his body. On the surface of Johnny's body, there was a layer of translucent cosmic energy barrier, almost close to the skin, looking like foam that would break at the touch. However, the bullets shot by Natasha hit this thin layer of energy defense, making a sound of metal. Then, the bullets turned into strange-shaped scrap metal, fell to the ground powerlessly, and made a crisp collision sound. Johnny's playful expression on his face did not change, and he slowly approached the nervous Natasha. All the bullets poured out and fell on Johnny. Originally, Natasha expected that even if these bullets could not hurt Johnny, they would make him flustered, but now, Johnny's clothes were not even affected at all. Facing Johnny's pressing, Natasha's body tensed up more and more. She dropped her pistol, which was out of bullets, and pulled out a dagger with the cold glow. She held it in front of her, squatted slightly, and faced Johnny nervously. "Are you a mutant, or a cyborg?" This was the first sentence Natasha said. Her deep voice was full of solemnity, but also had a unique hoarseness and a kind of magnetism. "I'm someone you shouldn't mess with. Do you want to surrender or continue to play with me?" "Don't worry, I have plenty of time." Chapter 61 Playing. Johnny smiled slightly. Completely unlike Natasha's nervousness, he still maintained the same speed and walked towards Natasha casually. But the more he did this, the more pressure Natasha felt. Just when Johnny was only 3 or 4 steps away from Natasha, Natasha could no longer bear it. The dagger in her hand turned into a cold light and stabbed towards Johnny's throat. At this time, although Natasha was surprised by Johnny's powerful strength, she was still not desperate, and there was fighting spirit in her eyes. Johnny was very interested in this stunning beauty. He did not intend to defeat Natasha directly, but was ready to have a good time with Natasha. The dagger that was difficult to dodge in the eyes of ordinary people was like a child playing house on Johnny. With Johnny's current reaction speed, Natasha could not even get close to him if Johnny wanted, let alone hurt himself. Johnny made a move when the dagger was less than 10 centimeters away from Johnny's throat. With his elbow raised, at a speed that Natasha could hardly see clearly, he accurately hit Natasha's wrist, which was tightly holding the dagger. A sharp soreness and numbness came, and the dagger that Natasha had used all her strength to attack could not be held at all, and then it slipped out of his hand and fell to the ground. This was because Johnny controlled his strength. Otherwise, even if Natasha had been trained by devils since she was a child and her body had undergone various transformations, her physique and strength could not withstand Johnny's attack. Johnny's body finally moved. With a casual step, he approached Natasha's body at a very fast speed, grabbed Natasha's already sore and weak arm with one hand, and took advantage of the situation to make Natasha lose her balance and fall forward. As a top agent, Natasha's combat awareness and close combat ability are of course not cheap. The moment her body was moved, she took advantage of the situation to launch an attack and greeted Johnny's fatal part. This attack has an easy-to-understand name, called a crotch kick, which is quite fatal to men. With Johnny's strength, he would not be hit and could easily dodge. The two passed by each other, and in this brief moment, Johnny felt the amazing elasticity of Natasha's body, and secretly sighed in his heart that she was indeed a stunning beauty. This made Johnny more interested and wanted to have fun with the beauty in front of him. After completely suppressing his own strength, Johnny and Natasha started a melee. Both Johnny and Natasha were quite good at close combat. After Johnny deliberately suppressed his strength, Natasha did not fall behind in the back and forth. However, as the battle became more intense, Natasha's breathing became heavy. Each of her attacks seemed to be extremely lethal, but they all fell into Johnny's rhythm and were led by Johnny by the nose, making it difficult to cause any substantial damage to Johnny. Johnny, on the other hand, had always remained calm, easily dissolving Natasha's attacks and launching powerful counterattacks from time to time, causing Natasha's physical strength to be increasingly depleted and stretched. Seeing Natasha's breathing becoming more and more rapid, Johnny no longer wanted to play. Seeing the opportunity, Johnny casually hit Natasha's neck, making her body suddenly numb and weak. She almost fainted and fell on Johnny. The most important thing is that Natasha was obviously not very old at this time. Natasha, who fell softly in Johnny's arms, could not use any strength at all and could only let Johnny control her. Until this time, Natasha, whose breathing became more and more rapid, had a trace of despair in her eyes. When she really faced Johnny, she deeply understood what kind of powerful power Johnny possessed. Natasha Romanov, right? Just when Natasha felt her body being touched by Johnny, Johnny's voice came into her ears. Hearing Johnny say her name, Natasha was slightly startled and her body became a little unnatural. Cold as ice, beautiful as peach blossoms, and ruthless, she can independently carry out various tasks. She is indeed a top Soviet agent. By the way, this time she should be carrying out the mission of the Red Room, right? If Johnny's first sentence revealed his identity, which surprised Natasha, then the fact that he directly pointed out that he came from the Soviet agent training organization Red Room shocked Natasha completely. The Red Room is the most secret of existence for the Soviet Union to train top agents. Not to mention other countries, even within the Soviet Union, there are very few organizations and forces that know about it, but Johnny in front of her can know it clearly. How can Natasha not be shocked? How do you know about the Red Room? Natasha couldn't suppress her shock anymore and blurted out. Johnny didn't speak, but looked at her with a smile, with flames flashing in his eyes. His mischievous big hands still moved wantonly on Natasha's body, making Natasha unable to resist at all. Faced with the dilemma, Natasha finally stopped being stubborn and slowly said, "Yes, I am from the Red Room." Pa. Johnny's palm landed heavily on Natasha's buttocks, causing her buttocks to tremble. This is a punishment for your hesitation. Next, you will answer whatever I ask. Do you understand? Johnny smiled. Since Natasha had already spoken, he was confident that he could get all the information he wanted from this stunning beauty. What mission did the Red Room give you? Johnny stared into Natasha's eyes, making the weak Natasha unable to avoid Johnny's sight. Seeing Johnny's deep eyes, which were like an abyss, made Natasha fall into it. However, Natasha still had a glimmer of luck in her heart that Johnny did not kill her immediately. As a top agent, she would not easily reveal information. Under Johnny's gaze, Natasha could not avoid it. She could only close her eyes and choose to keep silent. But what Natasha didn't know was that her attitude was completely like letting him take advantage of her. In the eyes of any normal man, it was enough to arouse a raging lust. Since you don't want to speak, I have to try another way. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Special Torture Methods. Johnny had no thought of showing any mercy to the beauty in his hand. This was his captive, his trophy, and he had the absolute right to dispose of it. Under Johnny's big hand, Natasha finally couldn't control herself and uttered a tender moan, which was charming to the bone. If I'm not mistaken, at your age, you should not have graduated from the Red Room yet, and you haven't experienced the baptism of the Red Room yet. You should still be. Johnny's voice was like the whisper of a devil, ringing in Natasha's ears, constantly breaking down Natasha's psychological defenses. Even though Natasha had received rigorous training since childhood and had a tough mind, she had already lost some of her defenses under Johnny's unmatched strength and various means. Swish! The sound of cloth being torn apart was heard. With Johnny's action, a long slit was torn in Natasha's clothes. No. The sudden change made Natasha completely lose her sense of proportion. Although she had experienced many years of harsh training, it was the first time she encountered such a situation. No? Then you can tell me about your mission now. Johnny had no intention of stopping, and his unscrupulous eyes swept over Natasha's body with a strong sense of appreciation. Hearing Johnny's words, Natasha bit her lips tightly, wishing to kill Johnny immediately. However, the Red Room will never show any mercy to agents who leak information. Natasha has seen many agents who could not withstand torture and were treated inhumanely after returning to the Red Room. Thinking about it now, those scenes still make her shudder. In this moment of hesitation, Johnny had no intention of waiting any longer. Swish! This time, under Johnny's fierce tearing, Natasha's clothes were completely torn. I tell you. This time, Natasha finally couldn't stand Johnny, who was like a devil, and was about to tell the truth. Sorry, I don't want to know now. Let me go. I'll tell you, it's an order from the top. They think you'll be a threat to them, so they send me to get rid of you. Let me go. Don't. You said the Red Room sent you to assassinate me? You seem quite courageous, Johnny muttered, with a smile on his face. Natasha leaned on Johnny's chest, naked, with strands of hair sticking to her forehead. Although there was some reluctance and complexity in her eyes, she no longer had the initial resistance. You can't assassinate me, but I don't intend to embarrass you. I can let you go. Johnny was very generous to this beauty who had become his woman. Johnny had no intention of killing Natasha. On the contrary, he wanted to keep her by his side. So at this time, he played the game of playing hard to get. I can't go back. The Red Room agents who fail to complete their graduation missions will not have a good ending. The best they can do is to be placed beside politicians from various countries, become their playthings, and collect some intelligence. If the organization knows that I have leaked intelligence, I will die in despair and pain. Natasha spoke. Her voice was weak, painful, desperate and confused. Deep in her heart, she had no good feelings for the Red Room that trained her to be a top agent, only hatred and disgust. And now after what happened just now, she knew that the Red Room would never let her go. Chapter 63, Conquering Natasha. In fact, when Natasha heard that Johnny would not capture or kill her, but let her go, She didn't know that she felt an inexplicable touch deep in her heart. Perhaps, if she could follow this strong man in front of her, it would be a good choice. Natasha thought to herself. If you want, you can stay with me, and the Red Room can't threaten you. Johnny's indifferent voice rang out, which made Natasha tremble. She raised her head in disbelief and looked into Johnny's eyes. From Johnny's eyes, Natasha could not see the slightest element of deception, but only a kind of confidence, the confidence of having absolutely powerful power. In Johnny's mind, it is indeed difficult for him to have the slightest fear of a mere spy organization. Would a dragon be afraid of an ant? Although you are powerful, the Red Room is also the most powerful spy organization in the Soviet Union. They will never let me go so easily. Although the confidence in Johnny's eyes made Natasha feel a little relieved, she could not really calm down. She was still a little worried about the Red Room's pursuit of betrayers. Then what if I say I can help you completely eradicate the threat of the Red Room? Johnny smiled. The strength he showed in front of Natasha was just a drop in the bucket. It seems that although Natasha has the intention to surrender now, she has not made up her mind. As soon as Johnny finished speaking, a light flashed in Natasha's eyes. If Johnny can really help her completely eliminate the threat of the Red Room, it would be a good choice to follow Johnny and serve him. As long as you can destroy the Red Room, I am willing to work for you if you can do it. Natasha spoke firmly and had made a choice. Emma, arrange it for me, Johnny said calmly, slapping Emma's hips lying beside him, causing Emma to look at Johnny coquettishly, but she did not resist. After nodding, Emma quickly put on her clothes and left, following Johnny's instructions. For the mutants under the Hellfire Club, it was not too difficult to destroy a mere agent training organization. What's more, the Red Devil also participated in this mission personally. 3 days later, the agent training organization Red House, built by the Soviet Union with countless resources, was invaded by unknown forces, and all the people were brutally killed, which made the Soviet high-level officials boil. For a time, many Soviet high-level officials were in danger, wondering what kind of power could make the elite agents of the Red House be eliminated before the message could be sent out. Thank you. After receiving the information that the Red House was completely destroyed, Natasha spoke to Johnny. Johnny smiled slightly and casually hugged Natasha's delicate body. After a slight stiffness, Natasha's body completely relaxed. Under Johnny's touch, her temperature rose a lot. Natasha, from now on, you will stay with Emma and the others in the club for the time being. Your main task is to train the mutants you have recruited. Johnny did not question Natasha's loyalty to the woman whose body he had conquered. He directly entrusted her with an important task and asked her to work with Emma. Understood. Natasha nodded meekly, without any trace of the cold-blooded killer's temperament. After leaving the Hellfire Club's official residence, Johnny went to Morgan Biotechnology. Master, why are you here? Seeing Johnny coming in person, Medusa, who was dressed in a uniform and looked like a CEO, was a little surprised. I'm bored, and I can't stay in the villa all the time. I came out for a walk and came to see the development of the company. Johnny had a smile on his face. Hearing Johnny's purpose, Medusa smiled, put down the things in her hands, and took Johnny to the company's research center. This is the core of Morgan Biotech. The scientific research projects are not only linked to biotech, but also include energy research and high-tech armaments. Among the large number of projects, some are left over from when Hydra controlled Morgan Biotech, and the other part is a cooperative project with the military. After a visit, Johnny, from the perspective of a traveler, believes that among the projects of Morgan Biotech, only genetic research has great potential in the future. Master, genetic research has always been focused on genetic experiments. Hydra provided a lot of research data on super soldiers during World War II. With the preliminary preparations, we have achieved certain results. This is the latest biological serum, which can greatly enhance the physical fitness and strength of ordinary people, but it also has certain side effects. Medusa introduced Johnny along the way. Seeing that Johnny was interested in genetic research, she said a few more words. For many years, the military has been making every effort to research super soldiers. We have tried to obtain the research results of Captain America Steve Rogers during World War II through military channels, but the military is too conservative about these things. In addition, After the emergence of mutants, the company has allocated a large amount of manpower and resources to launch the mutant project. We have had a lot of contact with Charles and others. Xavier's School for the Gifted is also conducting similar research, and there's a certain amount of information sharing, Medusa said one by one. Johnny nodded slightly. It was he who proposed the research on mutant abilities, but now it seems that there is not much tension. Genetic technology is a top technology, limited by the current level of technology on Earth. Most of the research on the genetic level is still in the theoretical and hypothetical stage, but Johnny doesn't care. His subordinates Morgan Biotechnology and Hellfire Club have sufficient funds, enough for them to do whatever they want. Coming out of the research center and walking through the company, Johnny has noticed a lot of strange looks along the way. These looks come from ordinary employees, security personnel and middle-level managers of the company. Medusa, the company has been quite busy recently. Feeling the prying eyes, Johnny smiled and said, "Master, the number of employees in the company has increased by 20% during this period. However, according to your instructions, I did not reorganize them." Medusa also knew what Johnny meant and nodded. "No need. Those who can be sent to carry out the mission are all top agents in various forces. Their abilities are definitely more than the salary you give them. In addition, you can spare no effort in attracting talents. The world situation is relatively peaceful now. An era of rapid development has arrived. If we want to rise faster, we can't lack funds, power and technological power," Johnny said to Medusa with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Chapter 64 Friction. In the office, Johnny and Medusa exchanged a lot of ideas. According to Johnny's consortium concept, long-term plans were made in terms of technology projects, high-level support behind the scenes, and funding. After sorting out her ideas, Medusa became much easier to manage the company. In a short period of time, Morgan Biotech began to contact many powerful politicians and officials. With the ambiguous relationship with the military, these people naturally became a member of the big ship of future technology. This tacit way, coupled with Morgan Biotech's wealth and attractive interests, Morgan Biotech began to develop rapidly in a short period of time. "Master, after half a month of negotiations, a member of the U.S. Congress is willing to support Morgan Biotech, but the conditions he offered are a bit high." "Master, 3 senior officials from the military have become our people," Medusa said respectfully in Johnny's villa. Since the last time he had a deep discussion with Medusa and made a long-term plan, Medusa's efficiency did not disappoint Johnny. Morgan Biotech has been increasingly in the vision of senior government officials. "Very good. Keep in touch. But these things must be kept secret." Johnny smiled. Now the company has a huge amount of funds. The main industry remains unchanged, but many researches can increase investment. In addition, we can get involved in other industries. Medusa stood in front of Johnny, and was shocked when she heard Johnny's order. Morgan Biotech is already quite top-notch in the main industry. Johnny actually wants to get involved in other industries? Except for the main industry of Morgan Biotech, we don't have enough manpower in scientific research team, but we have money. "Do you understand what I mean?" Johnny smiled, and Medusa quickly understood. What Morgan Biotech lacks, just buy it with money. "Master, I understand. I will do it soon." Medusa smiled and understood what Johnny meant. "By the way, why haven't I heard any news about Hydra recently?" "In my impression, Hydra doesn't seem to be such a soft bone." In a happy mood, Johnny thought of the Hydra he had paid attention to before. "There is really no news about Hydra recently, as if they are completely hidden. But even if they have any action, they are seeking their own death." When mentioning Hydra, Medusa smiled slightly, full of confidence, showing the style of a cold and arrogant CEO. Hydra, which was named by Johnny, did not dare to make any abnormal actions in recent times. With Hydra's intelligence network, it is not too difficult to investigate what happened in the Cuban incident. After learning about the connection between the terrible power displayed by Johnny and Morgan Biotechnology, Baron Zemo's face was gloomy, and his heart was full of anger and frustration. However, in the end, Zemo calmed down. With the current situation of Hydra being surrounded by enemies, if it provokes a terrifying existence like Johnny again, I am afraid that all the heads of Hydra will be chopped off at that time. Baron Zemo. S.H.I.E.L.D. is expanding rapidly recently. In order to develop rapidly, it even mobilized many Nazi scientists captured during World War II and let them enter S.H.I.E.L.D. in order to divert Zemo's attention. His deputy said another piece of news. Expanding wantonly. Very good. It's time to mobilize the agents that Hydra has trained for many years and start a comprehensive infiltration plan. Not only SHIELD, but also the governments and military of various countries in the world will start to infiltrate at the same time. In a few decades, Hydra will rise again. Zemo's voice in the dark was cold and full of infinite ambition. After the Cuban incident, both the United States and the Soviet Union finally chose to compromise. Although they were still in the Cold War, they had changed to another kind of competition. In addition to the arms race, it was also a competition between industry and technology. This was a period of rapid progress in human civilization. Under the surface of calm development, there was a turbulent torrent in secret. Morgan Biotechnology, under Johnny's prior guidance, has seized the opportunity, and the research and development of cutting-edge technology and the entry into the energy market have developed extremely rapidly. Moreover, behind Morgan Biotechnology, there is a large number of high-level politicians who support it to ensure that there will be no obstacles. Under Johnny's instructions, the Hellfire Club has developed rapidly, but it has always kept a low profile. The X-Men and the Hellfire Club, one bright and one dark, have solved many problems of mutants. In the world of mutants, these two places are their spiritual home. More and more mutants, those who are more radical, choose to join the Hellfire Club. While contributing to the club, they also enjoy the club's protection and relative freedom. For mutants who do not want to get involved in disputes, Xavier School for the Gifted is their best choice. Entering the school can not only ensure their own safety, but also lead a peaceful life. However, under such a background, there is a not-so-harmonious factor that has been affecting the Hellfire Club. That is SHIELD. As the Hellfire Club continues to develop, SHIELD's power is also rapidly increasing. From obscurity at the beginning, SHIELD agents can be seen in almost all difficult special events. In the process of solving the chaos caused by mutants, there have been several small and medium frictions between SHIELD and the Hellfire Club, and as the number of mutants in the world increases, these frictions are also intensifying. Johnny had heard Emma and Red Devil's reports on these things. Although he was not very satisfied with S.H.I.E.L.D.'s style of doing things, S.H.I.E.L.D. was a special government agency after all. Before there was a big problem, Johnny didn't want to cause a conflict between him and the government because of the friction between him and S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, whether it was the rapid development of Morgan Biotechnology or the activities of the Hellfire Club in secret, they were closely related to the acquiescence of the government. However, this balance was destroyed by a special situation. Master, our people clashed with S.H.I.E.L.D. agents when dealing with the awakening of a 12-year-old mutant in California 3 days ago, and were detained by S.H.I.E.L.D. After receiving the news from Emma, Johnny appeared in the official residence of the Hellfire Club as soon as possible. Tell me the details. Before figuring out the cause and effect of the matter, Johnny remained calm enough and did not rush to find the door. It's like this. Whenever a young mutant awakens, either the Academy sends someone to guide them, or we go there. This time, when our people went there, they found that the target person was 12-year-old mutant child. When he awakened, his abilities went out of control, killing 3 passers-by. Just when we had calmed him down and were about to take him away, we were intercepted by S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, who used force and detained our members as well. Emma's face was a little ugly. In many frictions, Hellfire had always been tolerant, but this time, S.H.I.E.L.D. went too far. Not only did they forcibly take away the awakened mutants, they also touched their people. Chapter 65, Visit in Person. Master, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been a secret government department for many years, responsible for handling special events, and has secretly captured many superpowers. I think they are not only trying to stop the chaos, but also have deeper reasons. S.H.I.E.L.D. has conducted many studies that are not allowed on the surface for many years. Although we cannot investigate the specific research content, according to the intelligence we have collected, Whether it is a former Nazi scientist or a high IQ scientific criminal, S.H.I.E.L.D. will secretly extradite them to work for them. Moreover, according to our confirmation, S.H.I.E.L.D. has at least more than 10 agents planted in Morgan Biotechnology. I am afraid they have a lot of ideas about you. For many years, Emma has not only managed the club, but also been responsible for all intelligence collection. She pays a lot of attention to S.H.I.E.L.D. When it comes to collecting intelligence from S.H.I.E.L.D., Emma's tone is full of anger. Hearing Emma's words, Johnny looked cold. With his understanding of S.H.I.E.L.D., this is absolutely in line with S.H.I.E.L.D.'s style. On the surface, S.H.I.E.L.D. has indeed made great contributions to social stability, but in many cases, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s behavior of using any means to achieve its goals is really too much. Compared with S.H.I.E.L.D., after Johnny took control of Morgan Biotechnology and Hellfire, he has always been restraining his subordinates, while strengthening himself. He has tried his best to abide by the bottom line and has never done anything that violates principles. It seems that S.H.I.E.L.D. thinks I dare not touch them. You contact Medusa and ask her to inform S.H.I.E.L.D. through military channels. I will give them 3 days to release the club members. In addition, let the arresting agents apologize. In addition, all spies sent by S.H.I.E.L.D. in the company will be controlled by Medusa. Johnny made a decision after a moment of hesitation. Yes. Hearing Johnny's words, Emma's eyes lit up. This time Johnny came forward in person, and they had much less scruples. After receiving Johnny's order, Medusa immediately mobilized the power of Morgan Biotech. On the one hand, she contacted the military with which she had cooperated and reported the incident. On the other hand, she mobilized the politicians and congressmen recruited by Morgan Biotech to directly put pressure on the military. As soon as she received the news, the senior military official who was responsible for connecting with Morgan Biotech was furious. S.H.I.E.L.D.? Well done. Who is Johnny? How dare he touch him? While cursing S.H.I.E.L.D. for being brainless, the senior official was not idle either. In such a situation, he could not make a decision alone and could only report it. In just a few hours, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s actions were already in front of the president. This is too much. Didn't S.H.I.E.L.D. see the order made by the parliament before? Issue my order immediately. Order S.H.I.E.L.D. to release the captured Hellfire Club members, and then ask the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents involved to apologize. As for what kind of benefits to give up, it depends on how to satisfy the other party. We must not destroy the friendship between us and the other party. Do you understand? The president made a decision without much thought, and a personally signed order was directly issued to S.H.I.E.L.D. In S.H.I.E.L.D., the director's office. After listening to the report of his deputy, Fury stood up in an instant, and a fierce light flashed in his single eye. Who asked him to arrest people? Let all the agents who are on the field come here, immediately. Seeing Fury's fierce eyes, the deputy felt helpless and quickly notified the person involved to come to the scene. Director, the agent who is on the field this time is a newcomer to S.H.I.E.L.D. He doesn't know that the other party is a member of Hellfire. After several field agents who were carrying out the mission arrived, Deputy Fury spoke in a low voice. Director, I don't think there is anything wrong with what we did. The other party is a mutant. His power awakened, and he killed 3 civilians. Moreover, the one who protected him was also a mutant, so the few people who were called in obviously knew the reason why Fury summoned them. As a newcomer who had just joined S.H.I.E.L.D., he really didn't know about Johnny, and the agent was quite stubborn. Shut up. However, before the agent finished speaking, he was stopped by Fury with a fierce look in his eyes. Feeling the sudden outbreak of fierce anger from Fury, the agent was also frightened. His face turned pale, and he dared not speak again. Do you know the identity of the other mutant you captured? Seeing that the responsible agent's face turned pale and he dared not speak, Fury asked. No, I don't know. Facing Fury's questioning, the agent shook his head and said, the mission he received was just to deal with the crisis and protect the safety of civilians. Seeing the 2 mutants on the other side, he didn't say much nonsense at all and arrested them all. But now it seems that there may be a big problem. Looking at the second-level agent who had just entered S.H.I.E.L.D., Fury felt like he was going to collapse. Bring the captured people here, contact the Hellfire Club, and we will send them back ourselves. Fury was in no mood to educate this brainless rookie, and he gave the order directly. Soon, a fighter plane took off from the SHIELD headquarters and headed for Manhattan, New York. At the same time, Fury had contacted the Hellfire Club, hoping to meet with the person in charge. Emma called Johnny. "Master, SHIELD has sent a message that they are coming with the captured people," Emma said. Hearing Emma's words, Johnny smiled slightly. This time, he needed to teach SHIELD a lesson. "Let the Red Devil come to pick me up." After saying this, Johnny hung up the phone. In the huge official residence of the Hellfire Club, a SHIELD warship branded with the eagle and SHIELD logo slowly landed. Fury personally led the team, and the captured Hellfire members and the others quickly entered the official residence under the guidance of the club members. "Please hand over all your weapons." When entering the official residence, Fury and his party were stopped by security personnel and asked to hand over their weapons. Hearing this, Fury was fine, but the faces of several agents around him showed anger. "Take it out." Fury's face did not show much expression, and he ordered lightly. Although his agents were unhappy, they had to obey Fury's orders. After a strict security check, Fury and his party entered the official residence and headed towards the core area under the guidance of the Hellfire members. The group walked through the luxurious and exquisitely decorated palace-like club. Even a big boss like Fury, who was used to big scenes, couldn't help but be a little shocked by the luxury in the club. And Fury's agents who had just joined SHIELD were like country bumpkins, and couldn't help looking around. The world's top club is indeed well-deserved. "Lady White Queen, the SHIELD people are here." In the huge room, a waiter pushed open the door and said to Emma. Emma's eyes fell on Johnny, who was calmly tasting wine. Johnny smiled and nodded. "Let them in," Emma told the waiter without any intention of getting up to greet them. A moment later, Fury and the others were already standing in front of Johnny and the White Queen. When he saw Johnny, Fury's pupils shrank slightly. He immediately confirmed Johnny's identity and became a little nervous. Chapter 66 Apology. Sir Johnny. Seeing that Johnny had no intention of speaking, Fury had to speak first. "Nick Fury, Director of the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency. I didn't expect that we would meet under such circumstances." Johnny smiled slightly, and then his eyes shifted from the red wine in front of him to Fury. In fact, when Fury entered the room, Johnny had already been secretly observing him. Fury looked like a middle-aged man, but Johnny knew that this guy was at least over 50 years old. But he used some kind of magical anti-aging agent infinite formula, which greatly slowed down his body aging and made his life long. "Sir Johnny, I'm here because of the misunderstanding between my agents and the Hellfire Club. This person is a member of your Hellfire Club." In front of Johnny, Fury didn't have much intention of chatting, and he got straight to the point. At Fury's signal, the captured Hellfire member walked out from the crowd. Johnny glanced at the mutant and saw that he didn't have any injuries on his body. It was obvious that he was just captured and didn't suffer any abuse. "Sir Johnny, this incident was a complete misunderstanding. This agent is a newcomer to SHIELD and did not understand the situation. I am here on behalf of SHIELD to apologize for the troubles caused to you, and SHIELD is also willing to make up for this misunderstanding, Sir Johnny." Seeing Johnny's expressionless face, Fury gritted his teeth secretly and apologized directly. "Well, Director Fury, since you said it was a misunderstanding, it must be a misunderstanding. You should know that I have Morgan Biotechnology and the Hellfire Club, and I am not short of money, so there is no need to make up for it. But I still want to remind Director Fury that SHIELD has been expanding for a while, recruiting all kinds of people, and it is inevitable that it will recruit a lot of bad apples. Don't cause trouble for SHIELD because of these people." Johnny spoke slowly. His tone was straightforward, which made Fury a little embarrassed. However, even Fury could not disobey the death order from the top. "Thank you, Sir Johnny, for reminding me. I will definitely pay attention to it." Johnny was meddling in the affairs of SHIELD, which he managed. Fury must have been unhappy in his heart, but he still didn't show it on his face. "In that case, I won't say much." Director Fury should have a lot of official business to attend to as he leads SHIELD. Johnny smiled slightly, but he didn't make things too difficult for Fury. He just used this incident to give Fury a warning. After such a commotion, although Fury must be unhappy, at least, When Hellfire deals with mutant issues in the future, S.H.I.E.L.D. will not dare to be as arrogant as before. Leaving the official residence of the Hellfire Club, Fury's face was not very good all the way. Seeing that Fury didn't speak, the people who followed Fury also consciously didn't want to offend Fury at this time. "Master, just let them leave like this?" Emma asked after Fury and others left. She still felt a little unsatisfied, but from a rational point of view, with the director coming to apologize in person this time, S.H.I.E.L.D. will hardly have much temper when facing Hellfire in the future. It's enough to teach S.H.I.E.L.D. a lesson. After all, if they really fall out, it won't be good for anyone. "By the way, how is the progress with Medusa?" Johnny smiled slightly, very calm. "All the undercovers arranged by S.H.I.E.L.D. and the company are controlled by Medusa. According to their mutual testimony, a total of 16 people have been found." Emma smiled slightly. "Very good. The tricks of the old fox Fury don't work with me. Feed back the intelligence that can be fed back to S.H.I.E.L.D., and I need to get more accurate information from S.H.I.E.L.D. Johnny nodded and looked at Emma, who understood. S.H.I.E.L.D. has the Cosmic Cube, one of the Infinity Stones that Johnny has always been concerned about. It is of great significance to Johnny to insert people into S.H.I.E.L.D. After this small friction, S.H.I.E.L.D. has indeed restrained a lot, especially on the issue of mutants that Hellfire and Xavier's School of Genius have been involved in. As long as it is confirmed that the incident is related to mutants, S.H.I.E.L.D. chooses not to intervene most of the time. It is for this reason that the Hellfire Club and Xavier School of Geniuses have ushered in a period of extremely rapid development. After a large number of mutants joined Hellfire, Hellfire was no longer a simple club, but was carefully differentiated, like a kingdom in the dark. Under Johnny's orders, a large number of mutants were transferred to an unnamed island in the Atlantic Ocean. Morgan Biotechnology has acquired many such islands, and some have been invested in construction to deal with certain special situations. The first island, which covers a huge area, is considered the first base in Johnny's plan. In the base, in addition to a large number of mutants living and training, there is also a special area for some special research projects. After the establishment of this island, Johnny directly arranged Natasha to be in charge, and he himself often stayed on the island. Most of the mutants recruited by Hellfire usually concentrate on various training on the island. Johnny occasionally takes action to personally test the results of many mutants. At the same time, he will suppress his own strength and hone and improve through a lot of battles. These mutants who joined Hellfire have many abilities, and there are many top-notch ones among them. It is precisely because they have awakened powerful mutant abilities that many people have become confident. "As long as someone can defeat me, my wealth and power will all be yours." Johnny only left one sentence for these thorns with inflated confidence. Because of Johnny's words, countless people were fanatical and there were many challengers. However, in a battle where Johnny fought against more than 100 people, Johnny alone took on the joint attack of nearly 100 people, and then used pure physical strength to teach all opponents a lesson one by one, so that each of them lay down for at least a week. After that, the Thorns who had the courage to challenge Johnny all settled down. This state of frequent fighting reminded Johnny of the days when he lived on Seeker. Johnny regained the comfortable feeling of being immersed in the battle, which not only improved his strength, but also made his terrible strength deeply rooted in the hearts of the people, and his prestige among all mutants was extremely high. However, this time did not last long, and was interrupted by a piece of information sent by Natasha. The base where General Ross, known as General Thunderbolt of the U.S. military, conducts super soldier research, was in great chaos 3 days ago. Monsters appeared inside the base, wreaking havoc and causing great casualties and losses. The intelligence recorded an accident that happened to General Ross a few days ago, which involved a mutant with terrible power. After the accident, Ross strictly sealed the news, and Emma and others did not get much intelligence. However, this information was enough for Johnny to infer many things. In Johnny's mind, a figure with a height of 10 feet, huge body, knotted muscles, and anger all over his body emerged. As the plot of the Hulk begun, Johnny murmured. Chapter 67 Super Soldier Project. Johnny's judgment was correct. The plot of the Hulk has indeed happened. The gamma factor that has been lurking in Bruce Banner's body for many years awakened in an extremely angry state, allowing him to transform directly. Later, Ross even targeted Bruce Banner, and took advantage of the relationship between Bruce Banner and his daughter to successfully capture Bruce Banner, attempting to improve his super soldier plan that had been shelved many years ago through research on Bruce Banner's body, and mass-produce super soldiers like the Hulk. However, there is often a big gap between ideas and reality. The transformed Hulk is not something Ross can control at all. The extremely furious Hulk plundered Ross's research base, destroyed most of the base, and then ran away directly. Now, Ross is trying his best to cover up the truth of the matter while furiously looking for and hunting the Hulk all over the world. The more terrible the Hulk is, the stronger the fire in Ross's heart is. In a sense, the Hulk was created by him at the cost of countless resources. Therefore, in Ross's view, the Hulk is also his property and must be in his own hands. However, most of his experimental base was destroyed by the Hulk. If Ross wants to restart the plan and improve this research, he needs to find a strong partner. Morgan Biotechnology, which has cooperated with the military, is undoubtedly Ross's best choice. Therefore, while constantly tracking the whereabouts of the Hulk, Ross also found Morgan Biotechnology. Master General Ross of the military has a special project that he wants to cooperate with us. I think you should be interested. Shortly after the Hulk incident, Johnny received a message from Medusa from the company, and a puzzled look appeared on his face. General Ross has always been keen on super soldiers. After the end of World War II, his experimental base was completely destroyed due to a gamma explosion accident. If I guess correctly, he is looking for us to cooperate with us on the research of super soldiers? Johnny asked with a smile. Yes, Johnny was able to guess Ross's intentions with just a few sentences and the intelligence, which made Medusa's voice slightly surprised. It's just that Ross's request is a little special. Although this project can be handed over to Morgan Biotechnology for research and improvement, all the results must belong to him. For this, the reward he offered is also quite considerable. Master, do you think we should agree to it? Medusa couldn't make a decision for Ross's request, so she chose to ask Johnny. Why not? Let him send all the research data and related information to the company. Johnny smiled and agreed directly. Although Ross is a general, he is ambitious, which can be seen from his research on super soldiers more than 10 years ago. Once the Hulk is caught and the super soldier plan is improved through the Hulk's genetic sample, Ross's army will definitely become extremely terrifying. Imagine an army composed entirely of Hulks, who are not afraid of swords and guns, and are tireless. Every soldier can fight against a legion. What kind of terrible changes will such an army bring? The most important thing is that such an army is controlled by Ross. However, Ross's plan is not bad. If he follows his idea, there is indeed a good chance to create an invincible army. However, with the army in Ross's hands, is it really feasible to capture the Hulk? Johnny, who is familiar with the plot, knows it very well. With Johnny's instructions, Morgan Biotech quickly reached a cooperation with Ross. After signing a series of confidentiality agreements, the super soldier plan that had been sealed for many years was restarted. The research data and test results that remained many years ago were all transported to Morgan Biotech under Ross's arrangement. For this cooperation, Medusa, at Johnny's instruction, also spent a lot of effort to specially select a group of excellent genetic experts to cooperate with Ross's researchers and invest in the research. After knowing that the Hulk appeared, Johnny's daily peaceful life had one more thing, which was to keep an eye on Ross and Bruce Banner's whereabouts at any time. As one of the highest-ranking generals in the U.S. military, Ross has a very powerful energy in his hands. He mobilized a large manpower to track down Bruce Banner's whereabouts and soon made progress. Sir, we have confirmed the location of Bruce Banner. He is in the slum of Rocinha, Brazil. A piece of intelligence was passed to Ross, which made Ross, who was a little tired, show an uncontrollable excitement in his eyes. Be prepared, don't alarm him. Ross spoke loudly, and his already old face became unusually ruddy. At the same time that Ross got the news about Bruce Banner, Johnny also received a piece of intelligence from Hellfire. Interesting, It seems that Ross is going to be defeated this time. The content of the intelligence was exactly the same as the intelligence Ross got. With the abilities of Medusa and Emma, it would be too easy to plant 1 or 2 undercovers around Ross, and Johnny only needs to keep an eye on Ross. The information Ross got about Bruce Banner is no different from what Johnny got. Ross made a lot of preparations for the pursuit of Bruce Banner this time, but in Johnny's view, even if ordinary soldiers are excellent, they can never be the opponent of the transformed Hulk. As expected, Ross's extensive preparations not only failed to capture Bruce, but also backfired, completely enraging him and transforming into the angry Hulk. After the troops led by Ross suffered heavy casualties, the Hulk leaped into the sky and disappeared from Ross's sight again. Bang! The angry Ross punched the table in front of him, and the anger and unwillingness in his eyes were about to burn. All of this was seen clearly by Johnny, who was hiding in the dark. The Hulk is much stronger than I thought, but I don't know how long his strength and physique after the transformation can last in my hands. Johnny, who was watching the whole battle, muttered secretly, "Red Devil, let's go." Johnny said to the Red Devil, who was standing respectfully behind him. "Yes, Master." With a slight sound, Johnny and the Red Devil's bodies disappeared instantly, as if they had never appeared. "Master, how is the result?" Seeing the Red Devil appear with Johnny, Medusa, who had been waiting for a long time, asked. "It was a good show, but as expected." Johnny smiled slightly, looking a little unsatisfied. "By the way, how is the research on the super soldier that Ross brought?" Thinking of the Mad Hulk, Johnny asked. "According to the research data provided by Ross, we have already produced the super soldier serum, but it lacks a key link. The serum does not meet Ross's expectations at all. Moreover, the serum has not undergone a large number of clinical trials, so it is difficult to determine whether there are any side effects." Medusa did not hide anything and reported the research progress to Johnny. "It doesn't matter. There will be experimental materials soon." Johnny smiled slightly, and the smile on his face looked very strange. Chapter 68 Crazy Chase. "Sir, you need to give me an explanation, so that I know who our target is, or, what is it?" In Ross's military base, Colonel Bronsky, who had experienced the battle with the Hulk, faced Ross with a serious face. "Bronsky, you have made a lot of contributions following me. With your contributions, you can be promoted directly and don't have to participate in the battle anymore." Ross was very secretive about the Hulk. Even if he was a capable general under his command, he was unwilling to reveal too much. "No, sir, I'm a soldier." Bronsky didn't buy it at all. He looked at Ross with determination and looked at Ross. After a sigh, Ross seemed to have made up his mind and told Bronsky everything that happened to Bruce Banner, which shocked Bronsky. "Bronsky, there are 2 choices in front of you. I can let you be promoted and no longer have to fight and retreat to the second line, or you can choose to become stronger and fight against the terrifying monster." Ross looked at Bronsky, who was shocked in front of him, and spoke slowly. After experiencing 2 huge losses, Ross has realized that ordinary soldiers can't capture the Hulk. If you want to deal with a monster, you need to create another monster, and Bronsky is his most elite soldier. "Sir, I choose to fight." Bronsky made his choice without much hesitation. He is a natural warrior. For many years, Bronsky, as an elite, had never encountered such a failure as facing the Hulk. He wants to wash away the shame. "Very good, Bronsky, you will get a chance and have great power." Ross patted Bronsky's shoulder heavily, and a fear flashed in the depths of his eyes. Soon, a super soldier serum that had not undergone any clinical trials was transported by Ross through secret channels and injected into Bronsky's body. After experiencing unspeakable pain, Bronsky only felt that his body was full of vitality and explosive energy. After Bronsky fully adapted to the serum, Ross did not relax his pursuit of Bruce Banner, and also took advantage of the relationship between his daughter and Bruce Banner to find Bruce's whereabouts again. After Bronsky completed the transformation of the super soldier serum, Ross could not wait to launch another capture of Bruce. However, as in the original plot, even though Bronsky's body was strengthened, making him much stronger than ordinary people, he was still as weak as a child in front of the Hulk. He was kicked dozens of meters by the Hulk and almost all his bones were broken. This battle took place on the university campus, and there were many witnesses. Although Ross mobilized the military to block the news in time, it still caused a lot of social unrest. We can't fail again. If we can't catch Bruce Banner, facing the government's questioning, Ross spent a lot of words to prevaricate. In his office, Ross frowned. Sir, the target person's ability is too strong. We have failed several times. Not only did we cause huge losses, but the Parliament has begun to hold us accountable for our actions. If we can't solve this matter as soon as possible, I'm afraid. Ross's deputy was also very distressed. The severity of this matter far exceeded their expectations. Don't talk about what I know. What can you do? Ross was in an irritable mood and interrupted his deputy rudely. Sir, you once said that if you want to deal with a monster, you need another monster. Although I don't quite understand what you mean by monster, I know a person who, if he can take action, should be able to solve the target person. Johnny, the mastermind behind Morgan Biotechnology. The deputy hesitated slightly, but finally expressed his thoughts. When Ross heard the deputy mention Johnny, he was also stunned, with a thoughtful look in his eyes. However, before he could make a decision, a soldier knocked on the door of his office. Sir, there are some things that you need to deal with personally. About Colonel Bronsky, a signalman reported to Ross with a strange look on his face. Soon, in the surprised eyes of Ross and the deputy, they saw that Bronsky, who should have had broken bones and had almost no days to live, had fully recovered and no scars could be seen on his body. Glad to see you recover, soldier. Ross's eyes were filled with unconcealed surprise. Thank you, sir. Bronsky's eyes flickered, and he nodded, looking into Ross's eyes. Only the two of them could understand the meaning in his eyes. How do you feel? Ross asked. Sir, I can't wait for the third round, but this time, I need to be stronger. Bronsky's voice was not loud, but it revealed a hint of madness. On the top floor of the Morgan Biotechnology building, Medusa, Emma and others all stood in front of Johnny, reporting to Johnny about the situation of the company and the club during this period of time. Almost all of them were good news, which made Johnny feel happy. Master, Ross from the military transferred a super soldier serum from the company a few days ago, and transferred a large amount of serum from the company yesterday, Medusa said. According to the intelligence we have obtained, Ross recently mobilized the army on a large scale and had a collision with the Hulk, which caused social unrest within a certain range. This is the relevant news information. At present, Ross has mobilized the energy of the military and even searched for Bruce Banner's whereabouts through the network of S.H.I.E.L.D. There should be further actions soon. Speaking of Ross, Natasha has been in charge of intelligence collection and quickly retrieved the relevant information. Well, it's another good show. Through the news from Medusa and Natasha, Johnny only needed to think about it for a while to figure out the plot. The birth of Abomination and the fierce battle with the Hulk were not far away. Johnny's judgment was correct. A large amount of super soldier serum mobilized from Morgan Biotechnology was used by Ross on Bronsky, which further strengthened Bronsky's body. At the same time, Ross tracked the emails between Bruce and a biologist who called himself Mr. Blue through the S.H.I.E.L.D. network. The biological researcher who called himself Dr. Blue has been helping Banner study the serum to eliminate the Hulk through emails, hoping to successfully develop a drug that can suppress the Hulk. Ross was furious when he got the news. Once Bruce really eliminated the Hulk with the help of Mr. Blue, all his plans would be useless. Attack immediately. Bronsky, this time, you must not fail again. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69, Suffering the Consequences. This time, Ross placed all his hopes on Bronsky. To deal with monsters, you have to create monsters, and Bronsky is the monster created by Ross. However, Ross never expected that the plan to capture Bruce Banner this time would be unusually smooth. As in the original plot, Bruce Banner found Dr. Blue and suppressed the Hulk in his body through Dr. Blue's formula. However, just as Ross was excited and ready to take Bruce Banner away, Bronsky, The monster he used to deal with Bruce Banner escaped from his control. A huge monster over 3 meters tall is constantly ravaging a busy street in New York. The body of the huge monster is muscular and has some disgusting mucus. Between his chest and abdomen, bones penetrate from the inside of the body, completely wrapping the flesh and blood, forming a bone armor-like existence. On the back of the monster, at the position of the spine, sharp bone spurs extend out, looking extremely sharp. There are also sharp bone spurs at the joints of the monster's hands and feet, which he uses as weapons to constantly attack everything around him. The monster roared excitedly. Under its violent power, the panicked crowd on the busy street was treated as ants by it. Under the huge power of its hand, the human figure was thrown into the air, and when it fell to the ground, it was unknown whether it was dead or alive. The monster was ferocious and not only attacked humans, but also the surrounding vehicles and buildings. Whether it was a car or a truck, it exploded under the powerful force of this monster. The explosion of the car had no effect on the monster at all, but instead stimulated its ferocity and became even crazier. The wall of the tall building was scratched by its sharp bone spurs and collapsed directly. As the chaos intensified, a large number of police and troops quickly gathered and continued to attack the monster. However, whether it was the attack of bullets or shells, it could not cause any substantial damage to the monster. But the attacking police and troops suffered heavy casualties. Just when everyone was extremely terrified and desperate, a huge explosion sounded at the end of the street, and a figure of the same size as the monster in front of him emerged from the ground. This voice was the Hulk. Roar! The Hulk roared and rushed towards the figure who was ravaging the streets and attacking the police and soldiers. The two figures collided instantly, making a huge roar, and soon fought together. Under the terrible power of the two, the already broken streets were ravaged again. Tall buildings collapsed, and the streets were full of exploded cars. The ground also broke open, as if it had experienced a bombing. As the battle between the Hulk and the Abomination escalated, the power of the two burst out crazily, fighting from one street to another. Wherever the battlefield went, everything was destroyed beyond recognition. Over the battlefield between the Hulk and the Abomination, dozens of helicopters hovered. Seeing the streets that were destroyed beyond recognition, everyone's eyes were filled with shock and horror. On one of the helicopters, the military leader General Ross had a gloomy face and bloodshot eyes watching the battle on the ground. The two monsters fighting on the ground were closely related to him. In a sense, Bruce Banner, the Hulk, was his son-in-law. The Hulk's opponent Bronski, who transformed into the Abomination, was his most elite soldier, Emil Bronski. Ross only wanted to capture Bruce Banner and perfect his super soldier plan through his body, but ignored Bronski, whose temperament had changed dramatically after being disturbed by the serum. General, the two monsters below are too powerful. The ground troops we sent out have been annihilated. The messenger's terrified report sounded in General Ross's earphone, which shocked Ross's heart. This time the incident was too big. With his identity, many things can be easily covered, but now, the casualties caused by the battle between Hulk and Abomination on the ground are already quite terrible. The most important thing is that they have no way to stop the two. General, what should we do? We must report it, otherwise if the battle on the ground continues, the whole of New York will be crippled. Ross's confidant saw Ross silent and couldn't help but speak. Hearing the words of his confidant, Ross knew that with the power in his hands, he could not stop the battle between the two monsters. However, if this matter is reported, his position as general may be. Report. The president is calling. Just when Ross was hesitant, the voice of the signalman sounded, and the president's call was connected to Ross's headset. General Ross, I hope you can give me an explanation immediately, otherwise not only will you be court-martialed, but even national security will be threatened. Tell me, how are you going to deal with these two monsters? The president's voice was anxious on the phone, and he obviously knew what happened here. Your Excellency, Ross was about to cry. The current situation was far beyond his control. He couldn't handle a Hulk, let alone an Abomination. He would risk his life to solve it. Just when Ross felt desperate, the confidant beside him suddenly thought of something and whispered in Ross's ear, which made Ross's eyes show a hint of joy. Your Excellency, if you can arrange for Mr. Johnny, who once solved the Cuban Missile Crisis. The problem here can definitely be solved. Ross seemed to have grasped the last straw, and a young and upright figure that he had seen in the information emerged in his mind. Arrange? Ross, you may have lost your mind. Can the government arrange for someone like Mr. Johnny? Don't say I didn't give you a chance. I will give you Johnny's contact information. Go ask others to help you with this matter. If you can't get their help, you'd better pray that the prison food in our country is delicious. The president snorted and hung up the phone, leaving Ross with an extremely ugly face. This was something he had caused, and now it was almost out of control. If he wanted to really solve the problem, he might have to ask Johnny for help. And if the two ferocious monsters could not be stopped, I'm afraid the whole of New York would be destroyed by them. Ross couldn't even imagine such a result. At that time, there would be no need to consider any military courts. Suicide might be the best choice. Ross stood there for a long time, with complicated thoughts in his mind. Chapter 70 Ross's request for help. At the beginning, when the Hulk caused trouble in the Institute, in order to cover up this family scandal, he mobilized the power of the military and suppressed the matter as much as possible. Ross was proud of being able to become a general, and he was unwilling to ask for help casually. At that time, Ross's idea was very simple: to capture the Hulk, master the Hulk's power, create an invincible warrior on the battlefield, and further his status and power. However, he did not expect that he would be self-defeating and lead to the current situation. Now, the situation is completely out of control, and he has no choice but to ask Johnny for help. Signalman, help me connect the dedicated line. Ross's face was gray. Looking at the Hulk and the Abomination fighting fiercely on the ground, he put down his pride and gave an order. In the Morgan Biotechnology building, Johnny had received the news as early as when the Abomination began to ravage the streets of New York. Several unmanned reconnaissance aircraft equipped with stealth technology developed by Morgan Biotechnology flew over New York, transmitting the destruction on the ground to the virtual screen in front of Johnny at 360 degrees without blind spots. Through this technology, Johnny can see everything intuitively, just like watching a special effects movie. Master, General Ross from the military requests to contact you. Soon, the phone in front of Medusa was connected. Johnny smiled slightly and took the phone from Medusa. General Ross, what's the matter that requires you to contact me in the middle of the night? Johnny spoke calmly, not mentioning what happened on the streets of New York at all, and chose to ignore the huge explosion and noise on the other end of the phone. Mr. Johnny, this is what happened. By now, Ross had nothing to hide, and told Johnny everything that happened on the streets of New York. Oh, so, these things are all caused by your biochemical research? I heard from Medusa that some time ago you retrieved a batch of serum that has not been tested yet, and you should have used it on a monster, right? After listening to Ross's story, Johnny raised his eyebrows slightly. Johnny's nonchalant attitude made Ross grit his teeth secretly. As a military leader, his attitude was already very low, but he didn't expect that the other party was still playing crazy with him, talking about things that were of no help to the current situation. However, the current situation did not allow Ross to continue chatting with Johnny. After gritting his teeth, Ross lowered his attitude. Mr. Johnny, this matter is all my responsibility, but the current situation is critical. It has caused many civilian casualties. The military troops are simply unable to stop the monsters. I hope Mr. Johnny can help stop them. I am grateful on behalf of the military. In the end, Ross was completely pleading. Okay, I'll help you settle this matter. Seeing this, Johnny didn't make things too difficult. In the usual cooperation between the military and Morgan Biotechnology, they have always been quite generous, and the benefits and policies are quite favorable. As for Ross, although Johnny didn't think much of his huge ambition, he couldn't be too much when the other party was begging. Now that others have come to him and their attitude is very correct, they still have to give him face. However, Johnny will not be so idle as to help with things that are not beneficial. But let me make it clear first, I will help you solve the two monsters. It's not without conditions. General Ross will understand this, right? Johnny changed the subject, and Ross's face, which had just relaxed, became tense again. Of course, Mr. Johnny can put forward any conditions, as long as I can do it. I will definitely try my best to satisfy Mr. Johnny. At this time, Ross did not dare to bargain with Johnny. After all, right under the helicopter he was riding, the Hulk and the Abomination had destroyed several streets. Okay, 2 conditions. The first is that the plan for the super soldier serum has nothing to do with the military from now on. The second point is that if I take action, the 2 monsters will be my trophies and have nothing to do with the military. Johnny directly put forward his own conditions. I will help you settle the matter, and after the settlement, you Ross will have nothing to do. I will take away the Hulk and the Abomination. Moreover, Johnny also wants the super soldier plan. Hearing Johnny's request, Ross's face was slightly solemn. When he asked Johnny to take action, he was ready to pay some price, but he didn't expect Johnny's appetite to be so big. But now, if he didn't agree, he really had no way. Okay, as long as Mr. Johnny can solve the crisis as soon as possible. Ross agreed with a bitter face. His ambitions for many years were gone in the blink of an eye. Even if the incident was resolved, his situation would probably not be very good. The anger and frustration in his heart almost made Ross vomit blood. The price has been negotiated, and I should also go to stretch my muscles. You just watch the show. I will contact you after this show is over. After the communication was hung up, Johnny pointed to the screen in front of him, smiled at the few people, and flew out of the Morgan Biotechnology building. At full speed, Johnny's body completely disappeared, and it was difficult to catch it with the naked eye. It only took 1 or 2 minutes to reach the battlefield of the Hulk and the Abomination from Manhattan. When Johnny's figure appeared again, he was already standing in the ruins of the battlefield, looking at the battle between the Hulk and the Abomination on the ground, which was still in full swing. Johnny smiled slightly, looking at the 2 of them like a hunter seeing his favorite prey. Ross had already agreed to hand over the super soldier research to Morgan Biotechnology, so Johnny would naturally not let this project be shelved. The birth of the Hulk was somewhat coincidental, so it is difficult to replicate it, but the creation of the Abomination Bronski is much simpler. Johnny's main purpose for this trip is still the Abomination. There is also Dr. Blue Samuel Stern, who created the Abomination. According to Johnny's impression, when the Hulk and the Abomination were fighting, Samuel Stern had already begun to transform into the big boss. But he was not in a hurry. After dealing with the Hulk and the Abomination, there was more than enough time to deal with the big boss. Compared with the Hulk, who relied on instinct and was extremely angry after the transformation, Johnny admired the Abomination more. Although after transforming into the Abomination, he could not return to normal human form like the Hulk, but the Abomination could always remain rational. In other words, the rational Abomination can be controlled, but the brainless green fat can't. After a slight smile, Johnny's momentum rose up and soared into the sky, and was soon clearly sensed by the 2 people fighting fiercely on the ground. Not only that, under Johnny's terrifying pressure, Ross on the fighter plane in the sky also discovered Johnny's whereabouts. Smiling at Ross on the fighter plane, Johnny's eyes slowly fell on the 2 fighting on the ground. I say, it's almost time to stop, otherwise most of New York can't stand you guys playing like this. Chapter 71, End of War. Johnny's voice was calm, although not loud, but strangely, it was clearly heard by the 2 people fighting on the ground. Abomination was slightly stunned by this method, and stopped rationally. His scarlet eyes were alert and stared at Johnny in the sky with some doubts. Roar! The Hulk roared angrily, like a wild gorilla hammering his chest crazily, and was very unhappy with Johnny's behavior of asking him to stop. This roar contained the rage of the Hulk, and the sound was so loud that it could be heard in the air and half of New York, not to mention the nearby blocks. Many people who had just escaped from the ruins felt a chill on their backs when they heard this terrible roar. They didn't dare to stay at all. Under the evacuation of the police and the army, they ran as fast as they could. Ross's face changed when he heard the crazy roar of the Hulk, but he soon felt relieved. Although the Hulk was powerful, how could he compare to Sebastian Shaw, who almost provoked a nuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union? Sebastian Shaw, who absorbed the nuclear reactor and whose casual attack was comparable to the explosion of a missile, was still killed by Johnny. With a roar, the Hulk saw that Johnny was calm and did not pose much threat. He snorted and ignored Johnny in the air. His bloodshot eyes fell on the abomination. Without any warning, he launched another attack. The huge body bombarded the abomination with powerful force. "It seems that you didn't take my word seriously." Seeing this, Johnny's eyes flashed. Although the abomination was looking at Johnny, who suddenly appeared in the sky, he did not relax his vigilance against the Hulk. Seeing the Hulk's punch, the ferocious look on the abomination's face rose, and he did not show any weakness to meet the punch. He had just fought with the Hulk in this barbaric fighting method for a long time. The difference in strength between the two was not big, and it was difficult to tell who was better. But as the old opponent of the Hulk, the abomination Bronski was beaten to a loss in every confrontation with the Hulk. This time, after he transformed into abomination, his strength was no weaker than that of the Hulk, which made him choose the way of hand-to-hand combat, hoping to defeat the Hulk in his strongest aspect. Seeing that the two huge fists were about to collide again, Johnny, who was in midair, had already disappeared from the spot. Boom, boom. Two roars sounded almost at the same time, and the bodies of the Hulk and the abomination stopped, still retaining the posture of punching. However, at this time, the two opened their eyes wide and looked at the figure that appeared in front of them in disbelief. This figure appeared between the two of them, raised his hands slightly, and effortlessly blocked the fists that were about to collide with each other, and he looked relaxed. The one who appeared was none other than Johnny. "I told you to stop. Didn't you hear it?" Johnny pushed casually, and a powerful force surged from his arm, directly forcing the bodies of the abomination and the Hulk back. Under Johnny's push, the two huge figures moved backwards, and deep marks were plowed on the ground. On the fighter planes in the sky, everyone saw Johnny's attack and gasped, "Oh my God!" One person blocked the attacks of two monsters. "Is he still a human? How can there be such a strong existence? I've heard of this person. He once prevented a nuclear war between my country and the Soviet Union." On many fighter planes, people were amazed and talked about it, shocked by the scene just now. "No matter who you are, this is a battle between him and me. You'd better not interfere, otherwise, I will make you regret and fear." The battle with the Hulk was interrupted twice by Johnny. He was full of hatred and anger. His deep and furious voice sounded, and his eyes flashed with dangerous light. Defeating and killing the Hulk has become an obsession that Bronski can't erase. Now that Johnny interfered, he has fallen into a violent rage. Johnny turned a deaf ear to Bronski's angry roar, and his expression did not change at all. There was a bit of teasing in his eyes when he looked at Bronski. Bronski was completely angry at Johnny's calm attitude. After becoming the abomination, all the people who faced him had only shock and fear in their eyes. He did not see much fluctuation in Johnny's eyes from beginning to end, let alone a trace of fear. "Since you don't know fear, let's let you taste the deepest fear." Bronski laughed grimly, squatted slightly, and kicked the ground heavily. With powerful force, he shot towards Johnny like a cannonball. The extremely sharp nails on his 5 fingers brought a cold light that could easily tear apart the hard steel plate and fell on Johnny's head. Facing Bronski, who was rushing towards him, Johnny finally moved his body. Under the fierce grasping and tearing of the abomination, Johnny slightly turned sideways, seemingly slowly, but perfectly avoided the attack of the abomination. In the eyes of others, this attack seemed like the abomination deliberately let it go and did not mean to fall on Johnny, but only the abomination himself knew that he was definitely going for Johnny's life. But at the last moment, he was dodged by this human. The powerful claws missed, and before the abomination could make any other moves, Johnny's fist arrived first and landed on the bone armor on the abomination's chest. This punch was an explosion of Johnny's physical strength. The moment it touched the bone armor on the abomination's chest, the bone armor made a sound of breaking under the heavy load. Boom! A dull sound rang out, and the abomination, who weighed several tons, only felt a sharp pain in his chest. With a short and painful roar, his body flew into the sky and was hit by Johnny's punch. Before the abomination could react, Johnny's body flashed and instantly appeared above the abomination that was thrown into the sky, and punched him again. This punch landed on the back of the abomination. Johnny's powerful force blew away the air and landed on the spine of the abomination, making a dull sound like beating leather. This time, The abomination didn't even have the chance to scream in pain. A large mouthful of blood and fragments of internal organs spurted out, and his body was like a cannonball, quickly falling from the air to the street. Boom! A huge vibration sounded, and large pieces of cement and stone on the broken ground splashed everywhere. The several tons of weight of the abomination, plus the force of Johnny's punch, caused his body to smash through the concrete floor and sink to an unknown depth underground. Around the deep pit created by the abomination, cracks spread like spider webs, making everyone shudder with fear. That monster was killed in seconds? Oh my god, it's too strong. It took only 2 rounds to destroy the monster. How can this be a power that humans can possess? I'm afraid only gods can do this. Chapter 72, Crushing the Green Fat. On the fighter plane, including Ross, everyone's eyes were a little dazed because of shock. Although they knew Johnny's strength was terrifying, the power Johnny showed in dealing with the abomination just now was even more shocking than his use of his ability. Even though the facts were in front of them, everyone felt a sense of unreality. After punching out and knocking the abomination into the ground, Johnny's body naturally fell down. He fell from a height of hundreds of meters with just physical strength, without any effort. Crushing the Hulk. Looking at the deep pit smashed by the abomination, Johnny could sense the aura of the abomination's sluggishness. At this time, the abomination, after being hit by Johnny's continuous heavy blows, had been seriously injured and lost its combat effectiveness. However, his physique was special and his recovery ability was amazing, so he was not dying. If it were another creature, it would have been so seriously injured that even its internal organs were damaged, and it would probably have died. Seeing that the abomination was killed by Johnny in just a few hits, the Hulk on the side was breathing heavily and was very dissatisfied. This was his opponent, but Johnny defeated him. He still had a lot of anger in his heart, which he hadn't released yet. What? Seeing that he was crippled by me, are you still going to fight me? Feeling the Hulk's gaze, Johnny was a little surprised, but he soon felt relieved. This green guy seemed to have a bad brain after the transformation. He was completely driven by anger and only knew how to release anger and destruction. In Johnny's impression, the Hulk seemed to have never been afraid. So, let him feel the taste of fear today. It's just right. I also want to try your strength. Thinking of this, Johnny's momentum surged and pressed towards the Hulk. The Hulk, who was already very unhappy, felt the pressure of Johnny's momentum and immediately let out a heavy roar of anger and rushed towards Johnny. While running, the Hulk grabbed a scrap car that could barely see its general shape and smashed it towards Johnny. In front of the Hulk's terrifying power, the tons of trucks were just like children's toys, and they could be swung around easily. The huge truck created a strong wind pressure and swept towards Johnny quickly. Faced with the fierce power of the truck, Johnny did not dodge or evade, and punched out with his 5 fingers clenched into a fist. On Johnny's fist, layers of cosmic energy gathered, coupled with Johnny's own strong physical strength. The moment it touched the truck, a teeth-grinding sound of breaking was heard. The huge truck was directly torn apart under the explosion of Johnny's condensed cosmic energy, and it exploded in an instant, leaving only a section in the hands of the Hulk. The truck that was swept by was easily broken by Johnny, which made the Hulk a little dazed. He casually threw away the remaining piece of iron sheet in his hand, roared and pounced on Johnny, and punched him down. Facing the Hulk's fist that was bigger than an ordinary person's head, Johnny smiled slightly. The strength is not determined by body size. Seeing the Hulk jumping around so hard, Johnny didn't intend to hold back. He also threw out a punch. The twisting force surged from Johnny's arm and gathered on his fist, blurring the space around his fist. Bang! The 2 fists collided, and the power on Johnny's fist exploded, all landing on the Hulk's huge fist. The explosion of the shells was difficult to break the green skin. Facing Johnny's full strength burst of physical strength, it was almost vulnerable. However, in a blink of an eye, the Hulk let out a roar, and strange green blood was splattered. In the eyes of everyone's horror, the Hulk screamed in pain, and his body kept flying back. Every step he took, the ground exploded. He retreated dozens of meters, and then he fell to the ground with a buttocks, his angry eyes full of surprise, feeling the pain that kept invading his fist. The Hulk's eyes were burning with anger. Under the stimulation of anger, the Hulk's body tended to swell slightly. The muscles all over his body were already exaggerated, and after the pain, they became even more knotted. Green blood vessels burst out, and the explosive momentum rose rapidly. Roar! The Hulk climbed up. The broken flesh on his hands quickly healed, opened his arms, fully displayed his muscles, and roared at Johnny. The huge roar and the sound waves formed made the surrounding buildings that had been destroyed beyond recognition tremble. Don't accept it? Then I will knock you down until you accept it. Seeing that the green fat man did not restrain himself after being punched, but became more angry and excited, Johnny snorted lightly, moved his body, and turned into a phantom in the sound of the sonic boom, and rushed to the front of the Hulk in a blink of an eye. With the speed of Johnny's explosion, it was impossible for the Hulk, who only had strength, to see it clearly. The roar was interrupted before it ended. Johnny's heavy punch had already landed on the Hulk's stomach, making his roar stop abruptly. The following battle could no longer be called a battle. Johnny was serious, and the Hulk could not fight against him in terms of speed or strength. Johnny's punches and kicks were accompanied by a certain amount of cosmic energy impact, which could easily break through the Hulk's defense and cause trauma to his body. Under the horrified gaze of everyone, a one-sided brutality began. The Hulk completely turned into a sandbag in Johnny's hand, and his body was constantly thrown into the air with a roar. At the beginning, the Hulk still had the strength to fight back against Johnny's continuous attacks. However, his attack speed was much slower than Johnny's, and it was difficult to touch Johnny's body at all. As the battle of crushing the Hulk continued, the Hulk's body was already covered with scars, blood was flowing, and his breath had become weak. Under the horrified gaze of everyone, the Hulk's huge body, which had no power to fight back, was caught in the hands of Johnny, who was much smaller than him, and directly lifted above his head. As Johnny exerted force with his legs, he lifted the Hulk and instantly jumped up. When he reached the highest point, he grabbed the Hulk and slammed him to the ground. With a loud bang, the Hulk's body fell heavily to the ground. As a result, most of the street was crushed by his rolling body and turned into ruins. In the ruins, the Hulk wanted to struggle to stand up, but after trying for a while, he found it difficult to get up. At this point, he had completely lost his fighting power. It's much weaker than I thought. If it weren't for the restraining power in your body, maybe I would be more excited. Johnny slowly landed, looking down at the Hulk who had lost his fighting power, his face still calm. As the Hulk fell, everyone on the fighter plane breathed a sigh of relief, and the big stone that had been hanging in their hearts finally fell. No one noticed that Ross's fists, which had been clenched tightly, slowly loosened after Johnny defeated the Hulk. The sound of the ground breaking rang out, and the abominable Bronski lifted up the large piece of earth and stone that submerged him and climbed out of the deep pit. His recovery ability was strong. After a short period of recovery, his severely injured body had regained its mobility. The broken bone armor on his chest had actually begun to heal, and the broken bones had been reconnected. The abomination, who had climbed out of the deep pit, roared loudly, releasing the pent-up anger in his heart. Chapter 73 Sandbags. He heard the huge explosion on the ground very clearly. In Abomination's opinion, the reason why he was severely injured by Johnny was because he was too careless, which gave Johnny an opportunity to take advantage of him. After the battle between the Hulk and Johnny, no matter who wins or loses, it is time for him to reap the fruits of victory. At that time, he will make both of them die in despair and pain. However, before Abomination's roar ended, the expression on his hideous face had already frozen. Not far from the deep pit smashed by Abomination, the Hulk was already covered in blood, lying on the ground powerlessly and gasping for breath. Johnny, on the other hand, stood quietly in front of the Hulk, without any damage on his body, and even his clothes were very neat. Seeing this scene, Abomination's eyes were a little more shocked and cautious. But that was all. This human who took advantage of him and injured him must die. Bruce Banner, you useless guy. You were defeated by an ant. The Abomination mercilessly mocked the Hulk, who couldn't get up after struggling for a while, and his brutal and bloodthirsty eyes fell on Johnny. Staring at Johnny, the Abomination was not careless this time. With the bloodthirsty intention flashing in his eyes, The ground made a loud bang, and the abomination's body disappeared. When everyone saw the figure of the abomination again, he had jumped more than 100 meters, smiled coldly at the quiet Johnny on the ground, and then swooped down. Seeing that the abomination faced Johnny, not only did he not have any fear, but he even wanted to continue fighting. Everyone felt a little weird. Is his brain broken? This was the only thought in everyone's mind. But it's not the fault of the abomination. He was hit hard by Johnny just now and fell to the ground. He didn't witness how Johnny blasted the Hulk. With a body of several tons and a huge impact caused by falling from a height of 100 meters, the eyes of the abomination flashed with a terrible light, gathering all the strength, wanting to leave Johnny with a lesson that he would never forget with one blow. It must be said that the attack of the abomination from the sky was still visually impactful. Later, the speed of the abomination's fall was extremely fast, and the impact was very terrifying. When the punch was thrown, even the air produced a slight sonic boom. However, Johnny, who was standing on the ground, had been watching the abomination attack calmly, without much fluctuation in his eyes. If there was any, it was just a hint of disdain and ridicule. For the attack of the abomination, Johnny had only one action, slowly raising his right hand and grabbing it towards the attack of the abomination. The punch that shattered the air came towards Johnny's face. If it landed firmly, his flesh and blood body would probably explode directly. However, the imagined bloody situation did not occur. The abomination's full-strength attack, facing Johnny's calmly spread palm, the abomination's punch, which was condensed with all his strength, was lightly blocked by Johnny. This violent force was resolved by Johnny, and even the ground under Johnny's feet did not shake at all. The abomination's body was frozen in the air, his eyes were full of surprise and fear. On his fist, there were layers of translucent cosmic energy, which completely resolved all his attacks. Johnny smiled slightly at the abomination who attacked him twice, and his violent power was completely released. The physical strength, speed, and control of cosmic energy were released in an instant, making the abomination open his eyes wide and want to withdraw. However, Johnny's anger was not so easy to calm down. On the broken streets, the rhythmic sound of hitting sandbags rang out. This time, Johnny's attack was much heavier than that against the Hulk. On the fighter plane, everyone watching this scene silently mourns for the abomination in their hearts. After a short moment, the abomination was covered in blood, and he didn't know how many bones were broken. Even with his strong recovery ability, the abomination felt that if he continued like this, he might really lose his life. Boom! Johnny's physical strength completely exploded, and the divine power flowed all over his body. The power of a casual punch was at least 10 tons. This heavy punch made the abomination's body fly towards the street not far away like a cannonball. All the street walls, buildings and public facilities that touched the abomination's body were broken by the abomination's huge body. After piercing through several streets, the abomination's body stopped. Most of his body was buried in a collapsed ruin. The exposed head and other parts were all soaked in blood, and he looked dying. This time, he really felt the footsteps of the god of death. Although his body had undergone the transformation of a super soldier and had abnormal recovery ability, under Johnny's high-intensity attack, the speed of recovery could not keep up with the speed of destruction, and he would be hammered to death sooner or later. The body was pressed by the ruins, and the abomination didn't even have the strength to turn over. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth like running water. Seeing the abomination like this, Johnny landed and slowly walked towards the severely injured abomination. "Bronski, this farce is over. You two come with me." Johnny agreed to Ross's request, just to come for Bronski and the Hulk. Now that the battle is over, he will naturally not let the two go. Bronski heard Johnny's words and reacted a little violently. His body covered with wounds turned over, and he was about to struggle to stand up from the ruins. "Even if I die, I will not become research material for others." As Ross's former confidant, he knew that with his current status, no matter who he fell into, he would not have a good end. "You may not understand that I am not discussing with you, but ordering you. Of course, you can choose to resist, but this time, I will not show any mercy. If the abomination refuses to obey, Johnny doesn't mind taking a body back to study slowly. When speaking, Johnny seemed a little impatient, and the faint smile on his face faded, which made Bronski startled, and the fear in his heart grew and spread. Even if I go with you, I will die. You can kill me. I will not give in. With each step Johnny took, Bronski felt more and more pressure, and could only bite the bullet and speak. Oh, but I never said I would kill you from the beginning to the end. I just asked you to stop, and I never said that you would become research material for others. If you are willing to cooperate, I am not afraid to consider sparing your life. You will definitely be more comfortable with me in the future than with Ross, Johnny said after hearing Bronski's words. In Johnny's eyes, Bronski not only has strength, but also reason, which can be used well. Of course, some experiments are inevitable. Chapter 74, Conquering the Abomination. Follow you? Who are you? Johnny didn't act immediately, which calmed the frightened Bronski a little. As a top soldier, after suppressing his fear, Bronski spoke weakly. My name is Johnny. Bronski was stunned when he heard Johnny introduce himself, and then he reacted and recognized Johnny's identity. The shock in his eyes could no longer be concealed. When Johnny appeared and stopped them, he felt that Johnny was familiar, but he was in a rage and ignored it. Now he finally knew who this person who easily crushed him was. Thinking of this, Bronski completely lost his temper. As Ross is confident, he naturally knew about Johnny's deeds, and he deeply understood that if Johnny really wanted to kill him, he would never waste much effort. He would not talk nonsense with him for a long time. Johnny saw all the changes in Bronski's expression after he recognized his identity, and his smile remained unchanged, waiting for Bronski's reply. Seeing this, Bronski fell into a brief angle. He would not doubt the words of a strong man who could easily crush him, but he instinctively resisted to let him leave with Johnny. It was not until Johnny showed an impatient look on his face again that Bronski panicked and finally made a decision. I will follow your arrangements and leave with you. Bronski spoke quickly and relaxed his body. On the fighter plane in the air, everyone saw Abomination lying in front of Johnny and restrained his ferocity, and they couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. General Ross, the matter has been resolved. I will take these two guys away now. As for the civilian casualties and the damaged streets, you can handle it yourself. While Ross was still surprised, Johnny's voice rang in his ears out of thin air, causing Ross's face to change slightly, and then he could only smile helplessly and nod. Although Ross was a little unwilling to let Johnny take away the Hulk and Bronski, this was the condition for him to ask Johnny to take action. He saw Johnny's action, and it was difficult for him to have any thoughts of offending such a strong man. Soon, a helicopter appeared in the sky. Emma and others, who received Johnny's order, took their men and took away the incapable Hulk and Abomination. Master, you won't leave with us? Seeing that Johnny had no intention of getting on the plane, Emma was a little confused. There is another guy to deal with. You take these two big guys away first, and let the Red Devil come to pick me up later. Johnny smiled slightly. Although he had dealt with the Hulk and Abomination, he did not intend to let Samuel Stern in the laboratory go. Although she didn't know what else Johnny wanted, Emma still followed the helicopter and left. Johnny moved and disappeared on the ruined street. Samuel Stern's laboratory was in chaos. All the instruments and serum samples were messily turned over on the ground, and Samuel himself fainted on the ground, breathing abnormally fast. On Samuel's fainted body, in a broken bottle of serum, most of the red liquid had already flowed out, all flowing down the broken cracks and dripping on Samuel's head. What was surprising was that at this moment, Samuel was emitting strange fluctuations, and his head, like a water bag filled with some kind of expanding liquid, was surging rapidly and getting bigger and bigger. Hasn't it been completely transformed yet? Johnny's figure disappeared on the street, and suddenly appeared in front of Samuel Stern. Seeing Samuel's change, his face was filled with an inexplicable look. Johnny's perception was sharp, and he could clearly perceive that Samuel's spiritual energy was surging at this moment. The chaotic and strange fluctuations emitted, in addition to the gamma radiation similar to the Hulk, also had powerful psychic abilities. However, looking at Samuel's state, this strange change should not end for a while, and it should take a process to wake up. Emma, let the Red Devil come over. Johnny called Emma, told Emma his location, and then hung up. The air exploded slightly, and in front of Johnny, the figure of the Red Devil had emerged. "Master." The Red Devil spoke respectfully, and seeing Samuel Stern on the ground, the Red Devil was also a little surprised. "Take him to the research center of the Morgan Biotech building," Johnny nodded and said to the Red Devil. With a slight sound, the black and red smoke remaining in the air dispersed, and the figures of the three people disappeared. In the Morgan Biotech building, a special area has long been prepared to store and restrain certain special beings. And now, Bronski and the Hulk are here. The two big guys were brought back by Emma and others, which really scared the staff in charge of guarding. Seeing the ferocious bodies of the Hulk and the Abomination, they were all nervous. Before they could properly place the Hulk and the Abomination, the Red Devil had suddenly appeared with Johnny and Samuel Stern, who was in the process of mutation. After seeing Johnny and the others clearly, the slightly panicked people relaxed. "Arrange a larger area and keep a good look at this guy. If he wants to toss, let him toss. When he is normal, you can notify me." Johnny said this with a faint smile. The big guy he was referring to was naturally the Hulk, who had temporarily lost his combat effectiveness. After a while, the Hulk recovered a little, and the wounds on his body, big and small, all showed a tendency to heal automatically. However, although this healing is fast, it also takes a certain amount of time and consumes a lot of energy. In order to prevent himself from transforming, Bruce Banner injected some ingredients that inhibit the gamma factor in his body in Mr. Blue's research institute. These ingredients are still in his body, making him feel weak. After Johnny's instructions, the Hulk was quickly taken away by a group of staff using special transport equipment and placed in a special prison. The design of this prison is to deal with special situations like the Hulk. Although the Hulk is really crazy and it is definitely difficult to restrain him for too long, with the addition of a strong magnetic field and high voltage current, even the Hulk may need some effort to completely break it open. After solving the problem of the Hulk, Johnny looked at the Abomination Bronski, who was full of doubts. Being taken to the research center of Morgan Biotechnology, Abomination saw a lot of strange things along the way, which gradually changed Bronski's mind. It seemed that if he could follow Johnny, he would have a much brighter future than following an ordinary military general. Seeing Johnny's eyes on him, Bronski knew what Johnny meant. "As long as you don't kill me, I am willing to obey your orders and submit to you." This time, Bronski's loyalty was more sincere than before. Johnny smiled slightly. Hating this cruel big guy was a double-edged sword. For Ross, he could not control hatred at all, which would only hurt others and himself. And when hatred was in his hands, it could not make any waves. "Bronski, I am very satisfied that you have such awareness. I will not kill you, but some necessary procedures still need to be followed. Go and do some tests first, and then I will arrange for the staff of the scientific research department to take over. I hope you will not let me down. By the way, before the staff finds a way to restore your body to normal, you can only move in the designated area. If you make any trouble again." Johnny nodded and said lightly, "I know what to do, Master." Bronski looked at Johnny's calm eyes, still trembling in his heart, and spoke quickly. Chapter 75, Storm. New York was invaded by monsters, and a mysterious man appeared to resolve the huge crisis. The identity of the mysterious man is a mystery. I suspect that the government is secretly training agents. When a crisis comes, it is often accompanied by the rise of superheroes. Our world is protected by heroes. Although the incident caused by the Hulk and the Abomination was resolved by Johnny, the storm caused by this incident swept the entire United States in a very short time, and even other countries paid a lot of attention to it. After the Hulk and the Abomination were dealt with by Johnny, the government responded quickly and immediately handled the crisis. A large number of medical rescues were launched, and the troops stationed near New York were also urgently dispatched. General Ross, the casualties and direct property losses caused by this incident are still increasing linearly. If the government does not come forward to guide public opinion in time, it may cause more serious social problems. Even I, the president, will be in danger of falling directly. I need you to give everyone an explanation now. When the crisis rescue was continuously carried out in the disaster area of New York, The emergency parliament was convened. Ross was stared at by everyone's dissatisfied and angry eyes, and he did not say a word. Ross also knew that no matter how he explained this matter, the result would not change much. His generalship was over. Morgan Biotech mobilized a large amount of materials and rescue teams in time after the New York incident. So far, more than 20 million materials have been mobilized, setting an example for the new era. Morgan Biotech announced that it would be responsible for the repair of 3 blocks. Today, the construction team has arrived. In the New York incident, in addition to paying attention to the incident itself, the most eye-catching thing is Morgan Biotech. It must be said that Johnny chose to let the company stand out at this time, which caused a huge response among the public. In less than a month, the market value of Morgan Biotech has increased by at least 15 points. After Morgan Biotech stood out, many local companies in New York also stood out, but compared with Morgan Biotech, they were completely incomparable in terms of speed and rescue efforts, and there was no lack of suspicion of following the trend, and they did not receive much good reputation. Master, your decision is really correct. The company now has a very good image in the high-level government and the public. It has incomparable long-term significance for the development of the company. In the Morgan Biotech building, Medusa smiled and spoke with some admiration. Johnny smiled in response. As a time traveler, his experience far exceeded that of today's era, and his vision was much longer term. "How is our guest doing?" Johnny asked. "The biological serum of Abomination Bronski has been handed over to the research department for combined research with the Super Soldier project brought by Ross. Although there has been some progress, it is not yet completely perfect. However, with such a walking experimental subject, I believe that the secret of the Abomination body will be deciphered soon." As for Bruce Banner, he has woken up and is back to normal now, but he is a little weak. By the way, Mr. Blue has woken up, but his situation is a little special. Medusa knew that Johnny was very concerned about this matter and had been paying attention to it. When she reported, she was also very detailed. "Special situation? How special?" Johnny was slightly stunned. Mr. Land's body has undergone a mutation. After testing, his brain capacity is almost dozens of times that of an ordinary person. In other words, his wisdom is far beyond the upper limit that humans can define. Even compared with the supercomputers of today's human society, it is more powerful. Moreover, after his body mutated, he not only has a strong wisdom, but also has a certain degree of spiritual power, which is constantly increasing. Medusa couldn't help but sigh when she mentioned Mr. Lan, Samuel Stern. After she followed Johnny to Earth, she came into contact with a large number of people with psychic abilities, which made Medusa almost doubt her own talent. Is psychic ability so worthless on Earth? Interesting. Mr. Lan is a talent. Medusa, do you think we can keep him in the company? After hearing about Samuel's ability, Johnny had already thought of conquering him. So far, he has Medusa, Emma, and a large number of mutants and abominations under his command. In terms of combat effectiveness, it should be considered barely enough. The only flaw is that there is no talent in scientific research. At present, there are at least 2 people who are considered to be relatively good scientific and technological talents: Samuel Stern and Bruce Banner in human form. Master, I think it will be difficult to get Mr. Lan to join the company through conventional methods. Do you mean to use mental power to directly control him? Medusa had dealt with Mr. Lan after he woke up. The other party's intelligence determined the difficulty of conquering him. No, Medusa, it's interesting when it's difficult, isn't it? Johnny smiled slightly and stretched out his hand to stop Medusa's slender waist. Let's go meet him. Under the leadership of Medusa, Johnny and the others quickly came to the area where Mr. Lan was. After Mr. Lan woke up, this area had a large-scale indiscriminate impact of mental energy, which caused many staff members to faint. After that, it directly entered a semi-blocked state. Standing in front of the door of Mr. Lan's lounge, Johnny felt waves of powerful mental power constantly sweeping over his body. This kind of mental energy carries waves of deterrent and temptation. However, both Johnny and Medusa were almost completely immune to this level of mental energy. With a slight smile, Johnny had already pushed open the door. The lounge was simply furnished with white walls, a white single bed, and white tables and chairs. At this time, Samuel Stern, whose head was several times larger than that of an ordinary person, was sitting cross-legged on the bed with his eyes slightly closed, as if he was in deep thought. Mr. Samuel Stern, this is. Medusa saw Samuel and was about to speak, preparing to introduce Johnny. Johnny, during the Cuban Missile Crisis between the United States and the Soviet Union in 1962, he showed amazing strength and solved the Hellfire leader Sebastian Shaw, who almost provoked the US-Soviet war. He showed abilities including flying, energy control, and speed far beyond the human limit. He is now the actual leader of the Hellfire Club and the person in power behind Morgan Biotechnology. Samuel Stern, with a big head, didn't wait for Medusa to introduce him, and spoke on his own, saying almost everything about Johnny. Medusa was slightly stunned, but Johnny laughed. It seemed that the other party wanted to show him a warning. However, what Samuel didn't know was that the ability he showed happened to be the capital for Johnny to conquer him. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.